a Playlist original.
Maybe it's time you came home. I'm worried about you, kid. You never see anyone. It's as if you don't exist.
That's the idea. Psychos can't kill what they can't find.
They're shooting Stab 3.
Jesus.
Brace yourself, Gail. You get killed in the script.
I get killed in Stab 3? I get killed?
Violence in cinema is a big deal right now.
Cue the violins.
Hollywood is about death. The violence people do to each other.
So if we stop making scary movies, what? All the psychos in the world will retire?
Hello? Hollywood is reeling today.
Cast member Stab 3 has been murdered.
It's happening again.
If you find yourself dealing with the concluding chapter of a trilogy,
Oh my god.
there are a few things that you gotta remember. Anyone, including the main character, can die. This means you, Sid, you got a killer who's gonna be superhuman. Basically, you gotta blow him up. It's the final chapter. The past will come back to bite you in the ass.
What do you know about trilogies?
All I know is that in the third one, all bets are off.
There's been a second murder.
Someone's killing them in the order they die in the movie. There are 3 different versions of the script.
Hello?
3 different characters die next. And we don't know which one the killer read.
We are not in any danger.
We are not in any danger, says Candy, page 15.
I don't see you leaving.
Oh, you motherfucker!
Welcome to the final act.
It's your turn to scream, asshole.
Hey, here's how I see it. I'm being stalked. Because someone wants to kill me? No, because someone wants to kill you. Starting now, I'll be with you. And since they really want to kill you, they won't kill me. They'll kill you. Make sense?
None.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your host, KSN Jackson. Another anniversary episode for you, and an interesting one because I've told Jackson that the Scream franchise has been in Back to Blockbuster's DNA unofficially since we started. The first Scream was our first anniversary episode ever, and we've covered pretty much all of them except for Scream 4, who I guess hasn't had its milestone anniversary yet.
15 next year.
15 next year, so that'll be it. Yeah. So I guess the guest we have on today is Mark J. Parker of the Release Date Rewind podcast, and he has been on, I believe, every single Scream episode that we've done.
I think so, right? Because the original, and we talked about Scream 2, and then Scream 5. I think we had a chat. Am I right?
And then you were on the Scream 6 one as well. So you have been on. So you have been on all of those. So it's very fitting that one, you messaged me and said like, hey, if you guys do Scream 3, I'm game to do it. I needed a pick for our anniversaries for the month of February. So I made this my pick because I was like, well, we have to get Mark back on. And plus Scream is an important part of our show. I told Jackson before he was even on, that anniversary episode of Scream was our biggest episode at the time, like when we first started.
That's right.
So Scream's important to the show. So that's, I think that's like what we've been trying to do with the anniversaries is explain why we're doing them. This would be a big reason why we're doing it, because Scream is just a big part of the show. And then the second one would be, I mentioned it earlier, there's a lot of, I feel, reappraisal, revision history with this one. People like it more today than they did back in 2000, so it'd be interesting to get into that. But before we start anything, Mark catches up with what you've been doing, because it's been a while since you've been on the show. It's also fitting that you're our first guest of 2025 too. So
absolutely,
have you back. As Ghostface has said in Scream 5, it's an honor. Wow, what an honor to be back on Back to the Blockbuster. And as you can see, I have my ghost face in his bow tie. I'm wearing my ghost shirt says "Let's watch scary movies." So I mean,
that's awesome.
And also, I don't know, you guys can't really see with my lighting, but I'm also wearing like this maroon cardigan that I feel is very Sydney when she's in her wooded home. You know, I wanted to really kind of just embrace the cold February weather on the East Coast and just kind of like be like Sydney, very cozy at home, having her nightmares and putting on her headset and talking to her, you know. What I wouldn't say patient,
like a crisis,
yeah, women in crisis,
yeah, which I actually we'll talk about it, but I actually really love that, and I think that was such a nice, like, really touching and very serious kind of trajectory for then her to do, you know. But we'll get into it. But no, thanks so much for having me, boys. Always so fun to chat with you. And yeah, Gaius, like you said, I reached out because I already talked about Scream on my show, and in that conversation with my friend Jeff back when the original had its 25th anniversary, we talked about the whole franchise. It was kind of less about the first movie and just a whole like a verbal essay on the whole franchise. So I don't usually talk about the sequels on my show, so I was like, hey, you do. So if you're doing it, and if you need a few people, if you need me to cameo, whatever, let me know. So so honored to be here. But yeah, my show's Release Date Rewind. Gaius has been on it a couple times. Jackson, I got to get you on it, but you're a very busy man to watch.
Yes, I would love to be on. We should schedule something like that. Absolutely.
So maybe this is the year that I'll have you guys on and Jackson can make his debut. But yeah, I'm actually today editing my newest episode that I'll probably have out tomorrow just in time for Valentine's Day. Well, tomorrow as of this recording. I know this episode will be out later. But yeah, a romantic movie that another trilogy. Well, you know, Scream's not a trilogy anymore, but you know, Before Sunrise. Before Sunrise with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. Love that one. Have you seen that, Jackson? I know you're a younger one. Do you know what that is?
I've not. I own two of them. I'm familiar with them. I'm more like psyching myself up to be ready to watch that series because I haven't yet. But I'm a big fan of Past Lives, which I know was inspired in a lot of parts by Linklater's Before trilogy. And I feel like I'm familiar with the series without having seen any of them. But no, short answer, no. But love Linklater.
Yeah, they're such great movies. Oh my gosh, when you watch them, Jackson, you gotta let me know what you think.
But yeah, so
that the original just turned 30, so that's my new episode that's now out. And then Brady Bunch, Breakfast Club, like got some good February. I think, the Brady Bunch movie, the Brady Bunch movie. Not the show. Although, I don't know when the show has a milestone anniversary. I've never actually seen a full episode of the show.
I used to love the sequel. The sequel one I used to love a lot for some reason. I was a kid. I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, and you guys are doing, I think, the Breakfast Club this month as well. Am I right?
Yes, we are. Yep.
That's our listeners pick. Yeah.
That's great.
I feel like we put it up against something that we knew it would lose to. I mean,
if anything, I think it was Shutter Island. I didn't think anyway that I thought it would be closer.
I feel like
end up winning.
I feel like I am one of the few people who loves Shutter Island. I just feel like that movie gets so much hate. I loved it. Oh my, yes. I guess you didn't love it, Jackson. Wow.
No, I do love Shutter Island. I just, I guess I'm not familiar with all the hate that it gets. I didn't realize.
I just feel like, I don't know. Every now and then I hear people, they post something or they say like, oh God. And I'm like, what? Like, to me, that was like Leo in some of his best work ever. Emily Mortimer, our Scream 3 girl. I mean, like, I just love that movie. Yeah. So, interesting. So that one that beat out Breakfast Club beat out Shutter Island. That's fun. But so as listeners probably have heard me before, much like your show, I talk about fun movies of all different genres having a milestone anniversary. I start with 20th anniversary just to give it some time, to really rewind and go back 20 years ago. I know you guys start with what, 10 years?
Yeah, well, we debated that because I think the only one we'd have done together that was 10 years old was Spring Breakers. But I think 10 might be too early. We talked about it a lot back and forth. I guess it depends on the movie.
It really depends on the movie. Yeah, totally. Maybe not every movie because, maybe not enough time has passed to really kind of look back. But some movies, they might not have aged very well or it's just a totally different world 10 years ago for that movie, So, but it's always fun.
Yeah. Well, it's always an honor to have you on. And since you are like, the movie anniversary guy, it makes sense to have you on for episodes like this, especially for movies of this period. Because like this movie, this is pretty much like the tail end of this kind of like slasher movie movement.
Yeah, you're right.
It was pretty much, it was dying out. And this was, I think, probably one of the last, like, little breaths that it had before it completely died out and got resurrected again. Years later. It also a very interesting thing too. Like at the time that it was coming out, I mean, I think in research, like a lot of us know that this movie was intended to be a lot darker, and then Columbine happened, and they kind of pivoted away from it being darker, and that's why there's more emphasis on
explains a lot.
Jackson's like, that's why. Jackson's
I
like,
love
that's
the historical context that I get from you guys from movies from this period, because that was one of my observations while watching this, and I'm a little bit removed from Scream 1 and Scream 2, at least by a matter of a few years. But while watching Scream 3, I'm like, this is very much a horror comedy in its DNA, which I know the series doesn't shy away from that, but it felt most apparent in this movie than I think in any of the others that I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting that I never would have considered its proximity to that event. But
it's actually pretty wild when you think about it in hindsight. Like when I was just doing more research on it earlier today, it's actually pretty wild that this came out so soon after Columbine. Like it's pretty ballsy actually that they weren't like, all right, let's actually just wait a little bit longer. Like, no, they're like, ooh, that sucks. Okay, well, especially knowing what the original plan was for the movie. I mean, I just, when I think of the Scream franchise, there's no bad movie. There truly is not a bad movie. This is definitely probably, even rewatching it the other day, I mean, I still love it so much, but this is probably the weakest link.
Yeah, it's my least favorite for sure.
But for me, not in terms of story. I think like the motive is great. I think it comes full circle for what was then a trilogy, like we were saying. Right now, it's not anymore. But there's some really great ideas. I actually really love a lot of the Hollywood stuff. I think that's actually really fun for a franchise that talks about movies to then be taking place in the area where you make movies. I think it worked well, but the execution was off. And now we know, because of Columbine and the original plan of like teens killing each other again and aging everyone up and taking it away from high school. It makes sense, but the execution was just off. But it all makes sense that it was off because, I mean, these people were like coming up with rewrites like every other day, it sounds like, so it was a wild time,
And they commented on that in the movie too. I think it's funny that this movie went through that. It went through a lot of rewrites. I know Kevin Williamson gave like a 5-page outline for what he wanted to do. He was busy doing other things at the time. This was like during like Dawson's Creek and like the stuff, like other shows he was developing.
And he had just done Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which was a big thing, which also had a ton of rewrites and reworking.
Was that his directorial effort?
His only one so far, other than this upcoming Scream. And then they brought Aaron Kruger in to write it, and definitely he pivoted away from a lot of the things that Kevin Williamson wanted. Kevin Williamson actually has talked about this movie fairly recently. There's things that he thought were executed well, and a lot of things that he didn't love at all. And then there's also scheduling conflicts with some of the cast, namely Neve Campbell, who you would notice is not in it as much as the rest of the main cast. Like they cut around it where it seems like she's in it enough, but once you watch it, you realize that she's missing a lot from like the first half of the movie, other than a couple of scenes.
You kind of realize like, oh, okay, she worked for maybe like 1 week. You know what I mean? Like, but it doesn't feel that way, luckily, because they do sprinkle her in throughout. And even like I've always thought that, like, yeah, this movie, she's like in half of it, but actually, it doesn't feel that way. Like rewatching it, I'm like, oh no, like this is still her movie. She still has a lot of work to do. But yeah, she wasn't on set for very long,
Yeah, she was filming Drowning Mona at the time, she was going back and forth, and that movie flopped. So I mean, that was a waste.
But I still, just a shout out to Drowning Mona. I haven't seen that in came out 25 years ago. I haven't seen it in at least 20 years, but just gotta say, what a crazy movie to bring together our Scream Queens, Neve and Jamie Lee.
And Jamie Lee Curtis, we're in it together.
Right?
Yeah.
So
a lot of problems, a lot of issues, but some that we can dive into. In case people don't know, this is the third installment of the Scream franchise. The story follows Sidney Prescott, who has gone into self-imposed isolation following the events of the previous 2 films, but is drawn to Hollywood after a new Ghostface begins killing the cast of the film within the film Stab 3. They mentioned that Scream 3 combines the violence of the slasher genre with comedy and whodunit mystery while satirizing the cliche of film trilogies. But like we said, unlike the previous Scream films, there was an increased emphasis on comedic elements in this installment, and the violent horror was reduced due to scrutiny of violence in media after Columbine. The movie received mixed reviews, but they said it has been reappraised in recent years, especially in the wake of the Me Too movement. And then also in the wake of Scream 2022 and Scream 6, where those movies were people seem to love them when they came out, and now people are going back to these older ones. And Scream 3 is one that they're going back to and rewatching. Despite the fact that it got mixed reviews, it was a hit. It made $162 million worldwide on a $40 million budget. It was the lowest one at the time domestically. I think it made like 89 or something like that. The other two made 100 here in the States, but still financially successful. But I think at the time people were not that enthused by it. That I know when I saw it in theaters, I knew from the opening scene that it was like, this is not going to be as good.
Oh my gosh, Gaius, you and I. Oh my gosh, you read my mind. I remember because I wasn't 13 yet. I was about to be 13 and saw it opening night, like not even night, like right after school. My whole family, I think, we went like that. We went like Friday at 4. Like we did movie and then dinner after. And I was so excited, and I completely agree with you, Gaius. After that opening scene, which I don't know, maybe it's my nostalgia goggles. Looking back on it now, it's still good. I mean, it's cool. But back then, just after 1 and 2's, both of those openings, because Jada doesn't get as much love as Drew, but they both are so terrifying and top notch that I'm like, I just remember even as a 12-year-old, I was like, huh. Okay.
Doesn't hit nearly as hard. And I saw this movie with David, who you guys know. I went to middle school with him. He's been on the show before, and I just remember sitting next to him and like looking over, and I was like, "This is not going to be good." It already feels like, and it was only like the first 10 minutes. Yeah. And then like I want to get into like what Jackson thought of it like first, all these cliff notes, but like I mean I just remember at the time like there was stuff I did like when I saw it in theaters. Like there's some really cool set pieces, and there's some really funny things, and some really funny lines. Parker Posey also, it's still great in it. I love her character a lot. But it also feels like it became the thing that it was making fun of. That Scream made fun of, and Scream 2 made fun of, and it became like a really cliche ridden like horror movie. Even though there are funny Hollywood in jokes and stuff like that, like it just couldn't escape the fact that it felt so pedestrian. It's so crazy because Wes Craven directed the first 4, and like he was on top of his game with Scream and Scream 2, and I know he had a lot of issues with Dimension, like the Weinsteins like messed with him a lot while making these movies, and I'm sure this one wasn't an easy one to do with all the issues behind the scenes, but it doesn't just feel like his strongest effort. I mean, it just feels it also feels like overly produced too. Like it feels like a lot of it feels like very, very like too polished, and then that's like a lot of my issues with it. But there are, like I said, some fun set pieces, and it is cool to see like some returning characters come back and interact with each other. I even other than like Parker Posey, I thought Scott Foley did a pretty good job too, as both like the kind of neurotic film director, and then who we find out he is later in the movie. He actually has some really funny lines as like the neurotic film director trying to get his movie made.
And I love when Parker Posey, once he gets escorted away by the detectives in the middle of the movie, and he's like, I had forgotten. I love when she's sitting there, I think smoking, and she says to someone, I think it's her bodyguard, Patrick Warburton. I think she says, "Remind me never to sleep with him again." There's definitely some good comedy, but some of it is we sort of lost the very natural. I mean, Kevin Williamson is such a good writer, so in 1 and 2, the comedy was, you kind of forgot it was even comedy because it was like watching almost like a documentary. It's like just watching real people talk to each other. This started to feel like, I'm going to say a funny line now. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I completely agree. I couldn't really put the hammer on it, and how you articulated it really well there, Mark. Like there was a distinction between the first 2 and its comedy roots, and 3. And I think you just summed it up perfectly, where it does feel more forced. And I think, obviously, I wasn't even aware of these reshoots or rewrites, not reshoots, but the rewrites that this movie suffered with. So totally thinking that would be a good scapegoat script-wise. But actually, I just wanted to clarify something. As we were talking, I have the IMDb page up here. And I don't remember while watching yesterday a writing credit for Kevin Williamson based on characters created by, but IMDb has Kevin Williamson as a shared writer with Aaron Kruger. Is that the case? Was I mistaken? Did he actually get a writing credit on the movie or not? Because I was under the
I actually didn't look. I actually didn't look in the
Okay.
credits, but I know that he did a podcast interview. I think when Scream 2022 came out, and they asked him about Scream 3, and he was pretty honest about the fact that he didn't write it. He did write an outline for it. He did write an outline for it, and I don't think they followed any of it. And the stuff that he kind of enjoyed, he loved Parker Posey. He loved the chase through like the Woodsboro set that Sydney goes through.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And then but he just said that if he felt that it got too comedic and they didn't know how to balance the comedy and horror. I forgot what documentary where, I think it's David Arquette, and it's a while ago, I can't remember what it is, but he said that there's something very like Scooby-Doo mystery about Scream 3, and I was like, that's like the best way to kind of describe it. Is like
great comparison.
Oh yeah, like, Parker Posey is totally in Scooby-Doo. She's not in Scream 3. She's in Scooby-Doo, and we love her. But I don't know. Every time I watch it, and like I said, there is not one bad Scream movie. We have seen way worse slashers, way worse.
Absolutely,
yeah, right? Especially by their third entry,
right? But just even rewatching it, and I know I'm gonna get some hate, because she is so great, and I mean, if anything, it made me appreciate Courtney Cox even more, because the two of them, I mean, they steal the movie together. Their banter,
they really do.
Yeah, they are so fun. And when Parker Posey, when Jennifer Jolie calls her Nancy Drew, Woodsboro High, like their comedy is so good, but it is just so misplaced. Like Parker Posey, even when she's running, like, and especially towards the, and I know I'm jumping around a little bit. I'll just say it right now, but in the big grand finale at this cool Hollywood mansion, like the way Parker's running, I'm like, no,
yes.
you need to be serious now. Like comedy, like sort of,
it's like really zany. Like, yeah,
it is. Arms up high, running away.
Yes, it's very like,
yeah.
I think
it's like everything is so
bad. She has a line after the explosion of the house where she's rolling down the hill and she says, "I can't stop rolling down this hill." like she's actually says that out loud, and I was like,
yeah,
it's funny, but like it feels like it's in a totally different movie though. Like, it's
totally, and I appreciate it, but it's just like I feel like even maybe, but again, I was gonna say maybe even Wes needed to be like, hey, like Parker,
let's dial it back.
Let me tonight after work, let's watch 1 and 2 again, so you can sort of match that where it's funny, but it's but and it's a bummer because you were even just saying this, Gase, and I agree that like Wes, R.I.P. He's a god, right? But he didn't seem to be totally on his game, and I was reading that he was apparently very involved in the writing of the script because Aaron Kruger, took Kevin Williamson's outline, his treatment, but like then with Columbine, like a lot of those ideas were mandated, like we are not having a bunch of teens kill each other, because that was the plan, right? Like the cult of Ghostface, which I'm sure we'll get eventually. It'll be recycled eventually for either 7 or a future sequel, right? And it's already been recycled for The Following, which was a great Kevin Williamson show, right? But it's just a bummer because Wes apparently was so involved with redoing things and really like probably worked the hardest on this and maybe even 4 than 1 and 2 with all the changes. So it's a bummer that it's not as perfect as I'm sure he was hoping it would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. One's actually about the opening scene again. I'll start with Jackson. What worked for you? What worked for you in that opening and what didn't? And then I'll go to Mark after that.
Well, truthfully, and again, I think maybe if I was like, I'll make no mistake about it, like you guys are absolutely like the Scream like lovers, and I always have appreciated the series, but maybe because I'm not as like rooted in the series, like I guess also when I was watching it, I wasn't thinking, what I should have done is rewatch 1 and 2 before so that I could make a more direct comparison, but I haven't seen, my last Scream movies were 5 and 6, and I haven't seen 1 and 2 in a handful of years now. So I guess I went in like not really. I went in like watching a random Scream movie for the podcast rather than like watching them sequentially, which in hindsight I regret doing. So all this to say, I guess I wasn't watching the opening scene correctly, if you will, like comparing it to the first 2 and like how like important those scenes are to the series. So I didn't walk away from the first scene really with any gripes. I liked how it was laid out. I guess what stood out to me, to answer your question more directly, Gaius, is I thought the voice box imitating Cotton's voice was a really cool innovation to Ghostface. So that was kind of what I took away from that. And it's just watching Cotton get smoked in the face with a golf club was also quite sensational opening too. And the dynamic between his, I don't know if it's his girlfriend or fiance, but like how she's how she's so terrified of him because she thinks it was him playing this joke on her and taking it too far. And apparently, like in the dialogue there, she alludes that this is something that he's done before. Thought made for a really great opening dynamic between the two of them, just to be brutally killed off. I thought the opening was effective. So had I watched it maybe more directly right off the first two and I was comparing those scenes, perhaps I would feel how you guys, like, I take it you guys were a little underwhelmed by the opening. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good interpretation of it, because like if you were detached from, because the opening for the first one is iconic. I think the second one is too. Yes. It doesn't get as much credit as the first one, but they're both pretty terrifying and executed pretty well. To watch them, to have seen the movies as much as I have, or as Mark has, it feels like a downgrade as far as like tension and atmosphere. I guess it's just very like direct and to the point, and just a standard kind of slasher movie scene. I guess I actually do like the voice changer. I know some people don't; they think it's like a little over the top, but I thought that was fine. I know my friend, when the movie came out, because in the first one we get Drew Barrymore, and the second one you got Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett. I remember my friend being like, "Okay, I get why Cotton Weir's in OC, but he's like, who the hell is this girl?" That she wasn't like Kelly Rutherford wasn't like famous. She was on Meryl's Place, and this was pre Gossip Girl, so like she wasn't like a well known actress. So it all kind of felt like a downgrade with like the people that were involved, the way it was executed. It also seems very fast. It seems very rushed.
I feel like it's the shortest opening, maybe of the whole franchise, but at least of those first three. So
really rushed for sure.
Yeah, I did like the kind of like stuff that you were talking about, like kind of her thinking that it's him toying with her and like stuff like that. I just wished it was more like the atmosphere and tension was more effective, and it didn't feel like it was just kind of like let's get this going and get the movie started. The other two, I felt like the opening of the first one and the second one, there was a lot more time to like kind of breathe with that a bit and like get you into what was going on. Even I know the opening for Scream 4 is controversial too, because it's unique and different, but that one didn't feel like rushed either, and neither did I guess the one for Scream 6 isn't like my favorite at all. With the one with Samara Weaving, it's not that great either, but this one just felt, compared to the first few, just a bit pedestrian. But I don't know, I asked Mark the same thing, like what he liked about it and what he didn't like about it.
Yeah. Well, I just quickly saying about 6, the Samara Weaving part. Yeah, like, because I think we all wanted her in it a little more, so it could have been fun to maybe have more of a chase in the alley or whatever. But I do appreciate how 6 then twisted it. With them we have a reveal, and
that was shocking to see in the theater.
That to me is really the opening. It's like Samara's just like the first 2 minutes, but it's like, no, actually, we're not getting to the title just yet. There's more, So I appreciate that. This one, well, first of all, it is so nice to see Liev Schreiber in this fitted white sweater. Like, okay, cool. And also, it was sort of like a nice little nod to Drew's white sweater or cream sweater.
Yeah, true that.
So I thought that was like a fun little nod, And here, don't get me wrong, I appreciate that in a franchise that now is 7 movies, but let's just talk about the 6. I believe besides Omar Epps and Casey's boyfriend Steve in the first one, there really were. Oh, and of course in 6 there's some men dying. So okay, we have men dying, but there's never been the man as like the main focus.
The main focus of the
film. So I thought that was kind of cool. And keep in mind, I do appreciate that this is the first time a returning character is killed. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that happens in 7. That the franchise doesn't do that much at all. So that was bold. That was like, when you see the movie opens on the Hollywood sign, I think ultimately they really wanted to establish like, hey, this opening, we're going bigger, and it's like, ooh, cars and speeding around and accidents and like, so, they really wanted to show that, which is cool. But ultimately, I mean, we want to see a scary chase and death, So I here, don't get me wrong, I like the voice changer. I think later, it just gets so silly the way it looks, and like 25 years later, guys, I'm still shocked we never got an explanation of how that existed, of how he got all these voices.
Oh, the voices,
a good point.
What? We just are supposed to
accept it. accepted.
Right. Like,
it falls
and I
apart
think,
if you think about it too much, but
yes,
as a tool in Ghostface toolbox, I think it was innovative.
yes, definitely. And I think right off the bat, the opening is like you're saying, Gaius, I completely agree. I think what makes it anticlimactic is once Christine gets it, which is not that exciting, you know, she's sort of just stabbed in the back, which fast forward, Jenny McCarthy's also stabbed in the back. I'm like, okay, not every blonde can be killed the same way. This is getting boring. Sorry, right? Like we gotta, you know, but so she's sort of meh. And then Cotton is sort of beaten up a bit, but then it's not the most exciting thing. I know in an alternate opening, he's trying to climb up the window.
The skylight, and he gets stabbed in the leg and he gets pulled down. Yeah, it's more violent.
That was kind of cool. I don't know. I don't know why. Because like that would have just added. Maybe, you know, but I do appreciate that the opening does very well introduce this new voice changer, because we had up until that point, from what I remember, we have never heard the killer use any other voice other than the voice, you know, so we hear this woman, then we're hearing Cotton's voice that isn't his. So that was spooky. I guess it just wasn't spooky enough compared to the first two. And good point, Gaius. Kelly Rutherford, beautiful. I mean, good casting, but you know, Liev Schreiber wasn't super duper famous. So it's like, all right, who's like his girlfriend going to be? It's got to be someone, I don't know. And at the time, I'm just thinking, who would it have been? I mean, there were different, I don't know if you guys, well, Jackson, how old were you when this came out? You were
one and a half.
Oh my god! Oh my god! So Gaius, I don't know if you were like looking up the rumors back then, but of course I wasn't. I read the leaked scenes. I mean, do you guys know what the original opening was going to be? It was actually going to be kind of corny. The victim was not Cotton Weary. It was it was Ben Damon, a character named Ben Damon, who was literally killed at the Hollywood sign up in the hills. So much like, which is funny because then Maxine kind of took that. Oh, spoiler alert! Sorry about Maxine.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's some action at the. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. Not really a spoiler, but just know the Hollywood sign comes into play. So you know that's kind of fun, but also come on, like Ben Damon getting killed. You know, so yeah, that was the original. But I did remember hearing the girlfriend had a bigger role, and they were talking about Kate Winslet, Jennifer Connelly. Apparently, I was just reading.
There you go.
Oh yeah, some like you know some
shooting for the stars,
right? Especially like Kate Winslet, like okay, Titanic, like whoa, like Oscar nominee, you know. And Jennifer Connelly was doing like A Beautiful Mind right around this time,
right?
So you know, so like some big like talented women. And then I just was reading, and maybe you guys saw this too, that Kate Hudson was apparently announced as Christine or as Sarah Darling, Jenny McCarthy, but then was replaced, which would have been interesting, but she wasn't that famous yet because this was before Almost Famous. So it seems like no matter what, you know, they weren't going to really maybe.
Well, and the thing is, like, a lot of people our age didn't watch Melrose Place. I mean, I knew of it, and then Kelly Rutherford wasn't even on like the most popular seasons of that show. She was like somewhere in the middle towards the end where it wasn't that good anymore. So like she wasn't a big star. She actually got cast after they were filming. So like they had already begun filming when they cast her for the opening scene. That's how like late in the game some of this stuff was. And
I believe, is that because Gaius, like I guess in the first version of what they were filming, all she was just a body. She wasn't even like she was less than
she didn't have lines.
Like, she had less to do than even Casey's boyfriend, Steve, in the first one. At least he's alive for a minute, you know? So, and then I guess they realized we need more there. And I like her stuff. I think we do need more there to have the girlfriend in peril as he's going to try to save her. But yeah, it's just not as exciting as the others. You know, they're dynamic. Yeah. I don't know what it is. It's something missing. I've grown to embrace it. But I am right there with you, Gaius. As soon as that cut to the title, which I love the title, I'm like, whoa, we got a bunch
the title thing is pretty cool. Yeah,
the screen is like red. I'm like, ooh, but I'm just like, okay, let's keep going.
I did the sink in my seat thing when I saw it in theaters, and it reminded me like this is not nearly as bad. But I remember when I saw I Still Know You Did Last Summer, and I was like, this is also not as good as we are falling apart at the seams, and I was like just sank in my chair. I was like, this isn't going to be good.
Yeah,
and like. Again, like Scream 3 is not nearly as like I Still Know You Did Last Summer is like, I mean, atrocious.
I know we talked about it.
Atrocious for Jackson, but like fun atrocious for us.
Okay, fine. I'll give that to you. Yeah.
But that's how I felt when it started. I was like, oh, this doesn't feel as good. But I do want to ask you guys, as far as there's reasons why there's less Sidney and more Gale and Dewey. I actually liked the increase of Gale and Dewey because they're really fun together, and but I guess like I remember I asked one of my friends about this, and they were like, well, it kind of gave it really makes you know that like they are not really leads. They are very supporting characters, at least in his opinion, and that Nev Campbell has always been the lead, and to thrust them in the leading position is that they weren't really like up to the task of leading the movie. And I guess I can see that a bit, but I think they do the best they can with the circumstances they're given. And of course they were getting married by this time, right? They were married by the time they did the third one, and they have natural chemistry with each other because real life and all that. So I like them together, but it is like interesting having them be in the forefront of the movie to start.
Yeah. I mean, even though Nev has always been the lead, at least in the first 3, I guess first 4, they always have felt ensemble-y to me,
Yeah.
So, right, and even like the way the credits have always been alphabetical, it always says David Arquette, Nev. I'm like, why David? I'm like, oh, So, so I kind of appreciate how they've always sort of made it feel like a group. So yeah, I see what you mean. Like they still are very supporting, at their core, even though they have more to do. But I don't know, it works for me. It's fun. And also maybe it was fun to see because we were like, oh, they're married now. They met on the first movie and now they're married. So like it was kind of fun to like give them more of the spotlight by now,
Yeah.
Wait, so David Arquette and Courtney Cox are married in real life?
Yeah, by this point, by this point.
Did not know that.
Not anymore.
Right.
You can actually like
awesome.
track. You can track their relationship. They were flirting. How they were described. They were flirting on Scream. They were dating on Scream 2. They were married by Scream 3, and then divorcing by Scream 4. So they were like, so they're paying but they've always gotten along. Like even when they were
professional relationship.
Yeah. They've always
nice.
And because they have a kid, or I think is it one kid? They still have to
I think they have one, Coco.
So they still have to like respect each other, and like they very much have always had that respect for each other. But it is interesting, you can track the trajectory of their relationship.
Yeah,
I admire that they with them in
together.
Yes, absolutely, and to the point where Courtney
chemistry.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh, Jackson, that's so cute. You didn't know. Oh yeah, they were a big thing.
Or if I did know, I completely forgot. I'm not sure if I ever even knew that.
Because this is the only movie where it says she's credited as Courtney Cox Arquette. And I don't even know. Maybe like one other movie was she credited as that, and then she, even while they were still happily married, she just sort of said, "I'm just Courtney Cox. that's what people know."
Yeah,
me as,
definitely has a better ring to it.
Yeah. Less letters, but it's really cool how the characters have sort of life imitates art and art imitates life with them. How like they met, they fell in love in real life, the characters fell in love, got married, got divorced in real life, so the whole journey is really cool. But Courtney, I guess, likes working with David so much that I know in Scream 5, spoiler, if anyone listening to this hasn't watched it, I'm sure you have, but she, I guess even the day they were filming it, was still telling the producers and directors, like, listen, is there any way we could like shoot an alternate version just in case? Because people are going to be pissed. Like, we can't have Scream without David. So, I thought that was sweet. But one of them had to go by 5. I thought one of them had to go by 4, honestly. It was just getting too like, do you know what I mean? And I say that with love. I love them. They're my trio. I mean, they're my friends. But they can't keep surviving, every single
night, I thought the end of 6 with Gale still in the picture was ludicrous. After
thank God you made it, Jackson. Thank God.
It was ludicrous with a lot of them still in the picture.
I know.
Yes,
there were way too many survivors.
Like stabbed multiple times, and they all survived. Like Mason Gooding, love him.
Oh my God, he gets Swiss cheese.
Should have died. Yeah.
Exactly. Swiss cheese. In 7, that man better be in a wheelchair. He better be like, he cannot move normally. Like, you remember in 2 when like Dewey has his limp from getting stabbed in the back? Mason better be like, give me a minute, and like it's
like puppeteered. Yeah. Something a little realistic, but and the limp was still there. I actually forgot about that character trait of Dewey's, but I noticed it in a couple of scenes where he's like running, and it seemed like a little bit less pronounced, but I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot that he struggled with that after.
I think there's even a quote somewhere that's so funny, Jackson, you bring that up, because there's a quote somewhere either from David or Wes saying that like the limp is really there in 2, and then in 3 and 4 it well, by 4, I think it's gone.
I don't think it's gone. I don't think he has it anymore.
So yeah, it's funny how it's like he
Yeah.
got healthier and it's all
Yeah.
good, you know. So
Yeah, I will say that they do have funny stuff together. Like there's a one line where they're at in Detective Kincaid's office and they're talking about Sydney's number, and she's like, "Is it stored in your memory?" And he like looks up, and she's like, "Phone memory." And he's like, "Oh no, yeah." like they have like really funny things, and then also the whole like trifecta of like him, her, and then Parker Posey is fun together too.
Yes,
and like. For some reason, I heard that Courtney Cox and Parker Posey didn't get along great while doing this. Like,
oh,
it wasn't
really?
Could have fooled me.
And I get because Parker Posey like improv a lot. It was really goofy a lot, and maybe something appreciated more now than it was then.
Interesting.
Parker Posey loved making this movie. By the way, like she talks about it fondly today. Like she's hearing all these people coming back, and she's like, "I want to come back. Please bring me back."
Did you see
like,
what she just told one person at the White Lotus premiere? She said, "I want to do a Stab movie." Like she wants to make like a movie within a movie, you know, the Stab movie, but like when they're still alive, like maybe like make Stab 1 or something. I don't know, but I just love that she does not want to give this up. Yeah. That's surprising though if they didn't get along. That would be really sad because they're so fun together. And I even just posted on my stories a couple days ago pictures of them like at a screening, like hugging each other. So either that's great acting or maybe that's just a rumor that they didn't get along. I hope they didn't. I hope they got along.
Just a rumor. Yeah, because they are fun together. They have good comedic stuff together. I love that like her character Jennifer Lee like thinks she is Gale. Like she like when she just like my Gale Weathers would do this and my Gale Weathers would do that. And, like it's funny stuff. And like like you said, we mentioned it earlier, it's pretty zany. There's a line that still cracks me up, even though it's over the top. When they confront the guy who's over the studio, and they find out that like he knew Maureen, and she's like, "You're obsessed with her, and you're obsessed with her daughter," and like she's like, "Yeah, cool it."
It's
like,
so
some really funny stuff in it.
It's so much. I mean, it's hard because it's a double-edged sword or double-edged knife for Ghostface. Like I love what she's doing, but it's every time I'm like, you know what I mean? Because I can quote those lines. I loved when this is the first movie where Sydney doesn't punch Gale. Gale punches Jennifer, which is a fun twist, and they actually hug Sydney and Gale, which is like so new for the franchise.
It's an awkward hug too at first.
Yes.
I'm like,
but
like,
when Gale punches Jennifer, and then Jennifer says, "I just love the line, my lawyer liked that." It's just like.
Yeah, she does have a fight when she sees them together. She's like, "What the fuck happened to you?" Like she's just so like angry. Like she's in another movie entirely, but like it's a funny movie. It's like separately, like from but at least she's having fun.
Oh, she's having so much fun. That when she jumps into Patrick Warburton's arms in that scene, it is. I actually had to rewind it because I'm like, this is just so beautifully bizarre. You know what I mean? It's good.
So this movie has a similar like I guess it like not issue, but Scream 2 had like new characters that were introduced and killed off pretty quick. Like you had Sarah Michelle Gellar's character who's only in 2 scenes and she dies. A lot of new people that don't do much, and I didn't mind that there, but I did mind a lot of the new people here that didn't have much to do and they just they get killed off, or you don't really get to know them. I don't know if it's because like maybe I was more like I like the actors more in Scream 2 than the ones in Scream 3. Are they like the execution was a bit better there? But there are people in Scream 3 that, other than Scott Foley and Parker Posey, like some of the newer people. I guess Patrick Dempsey is another new face that has a lot to do. But
he has a good
them,
amount to do. But
like,
yeah,
Emily
you're
Mortimer
so
doesn't
right.
have much to do. Jenny McCarthy dies pretty quick. Dion Richmond, like I love that you mentioned in your post. Like I'm still surprised that like the black guy made the poster because he doesn't have a lot to do either. But I think that was just for diversity's sake to sell the movie.
I'm sorry, everybody, and I'm all for diversity. And it is sort of surprising how like we've talked about it. Like 2, wow, we had some amazing black characters. We had great diversity. Like they got the memo. Like, oh, audiences beyond white people loved the first one. But then with 3 and 4, right? 3 and 4, there was just one person of color. You know,
and they didn't give him much to do at all.
They didn't give him much to do. I mean, he pops up at least more than Jenny McCarthy, if you include obviously the scene where we meet them all talking on set, and then he does pop up right before Jenny McCarthy gets killed, with like they're doing the makeup test, and then later at the party. But I'm just like, where are all these people? Like, It's weird. I totally agree with you, Gaius. I don't know, something about Scream 2's chemistry and energy. I didn't mind if people were only in it for a little bit here and there. Even, spoiler alert, one of the killers isn't really in the movie that much, in Scream 2, right? Yeah. Mickey. But here, I'm like, wait, so you're still around? Like, it's weird. And like, I'm just like, Dion Richmond, of all the supporting people, I hate to say it, is the least important. Like, to me, Jenny McCarthy, Emily Mortimer, they have kind of a little bit more importance, at least in my mind.
Jenny McCarthy was more popular than him at that time. So I don't know how she didn't. I mean, it's
right.
Dion,
or
I mean, he does have a funny line delivery when they're like talking about who stole the mask. Did you steal the mask? And he's like, "Don't look at me. I take shit." Like, it's a very very black guy delivery.
Yes,
you're right. But
I still think though, because I had, and Jackson, you're gonna laugh because you were a baby, but I love these movies so much. On one of my walls in my room, I was covered in movie posters, of course, but one wall was dedicated to Scream. So it was 1, 2, 3, all next to each other. Nice. Some friends that weren't allowed to see it would come over and be like, "You have a very sad, dark, very black, scary wall." I'm like, whatever. But I also was sort of annoyed that the poster for one really was just Drew's face, but then later for DVD, for video and everything, it was the 5 of them, but they weren't
the cast group shot.
They were in an interesting, and then 2 introduced the V with Sydney in the front, and then 3 just copied it. And I don't know, maybe I'm lame, but I'm like, you're just gonna redo that? Give me a new formation, And also I thought, if you're gonna do the formation, why? And it's in Hollywood, it's so meta. This movie might be the most meta of the whole franchise, because there are people playing them. Why not have our 3 leads with the 3 counterparts? Have Emily Mortimer,
great idea.
Even though she doesn't have much to do, and Matt Kiesler, who I love, who doesn't have much to do at all, as Dewey. But then we know Parker Posey has a lot to do. That would be interesting to have the real people with the actors playing them and have that kind of mirror image. I just thought what we got for the final poster was so lazy.
It was a copy and paste of the second one. They were like, all right,
right. And we didn't even, and then we don't even get the cool 3. They made that cool
it's
3
in the background.
Yeah. I'm like, at least have faces around the, I don't know. I'm like, even as a kid, I'm like, this is strange marketing, but I know
who is Dion Richmond's character portraying in Stab 1?
I don't know. That's a good question.
That's a good question.
I've been wondering that. I'm like, am I not in this?
Is he not Dwayne Martin's character from Scream 2? Is he
that's interesting.
Would make sense, but I feel like they're portraying the events from the first movie.
They're kind of, which I also think is really smart as a trilogy, that for our real people going back to the beginning, but also the Stab 3 movie within the movie is also kind of going back to the beginning. I think that's pretty clever and interesting. But I think he might even say it. I think he's just supposed to be a new Randy. He's supposed to just be a new movie nerd.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And he might even say and they needed someone, to be the person of color, or the token black guy. He even sort of alludes to that, and it's I guess it's going to be Randy or something. So that's all really clever. I think that's cool. It's just well, then give him something to do. I don't know, for a movie that doesn't have that many leading roles. It's a long movie. It's almost a full 2 hours, and
it's almost 2 hours. It's really long. I
wanted your guys' take on that, because
I honestly felt it this time, and I was like, this is not, because I think after the Woodsboro set chase, which we can talk about a little bit, I was like, oh, it feels like we're getting somewhere where it's almost about to end, and then there's just so much more stuff. And I like some of the stuff in the old Hollywood home, the mansion thing. That's pretty cool too, but when I was watching it for this, I was like, "Oh, this is longer than I remember." And I think they're all around the same length for the most part. But this one, felt pretty long.
2 and 6 are the longest ones. They're exactly 2 hours or longer. But this one, I think because it's got some ups and downs, and it's where's the killer wants to know. We all want to know, where's Sydney. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say it drags. It's too fun and goofy to drag, but it's just kind of okay, where's this going? And I don't know. I mean, I just think that's that whole interesting discovery for Sydney on set is so cool and sad, and also opens our eyes even more to her mom's history, because we never have seen, even in the first film, we never saw mom and dad's bedroom. So to see this recreation of it on set is oh, that's new info for us, Scream geeks, right? That I kind of wish like the climax of the movie should have taken place not at another house, but on set, right? That would have been interesting.
It's almost like they kind of shot that, like they not wasted, because the scene is really good in the middle on the Woodsboro set, but it should have maybe that kind of stuff should have been like at the end
for the finale. I agree.
Right?
I'm glad we got it, but
yeah. But like, just imagine, like, this is my nerdy brain imagining, like, yeah, what if the finale's on the set in front of like Stu's fake house, it would actually be pretty cool, only because we're in Stu's house so much in this franchise, to actually have the finale take place like in Sydney's house, like that, or well, in her fake house, in her set house. That would have been interesting. But like, imagine like Scott Foley, Roman, when he brings out John Milton, which I love all that. Like, that's sick and twisted, because John Milton, now we know, is sort of like Harvey Weinstein, which is so crazy.
I'm surprised that
right?
Let's just like, let's sneak this in here.
Yeah. And that the Weinsteins were like, cool, all right, check. Like, whoa, this is twisted. Like, that's dark. That's the darkest stuff of the whole movie. But imagine like Roman pulling him out and saying something like, all right, Milton, like, you know how to work a camera from your old days. I want you to record this. And they're shooting like an actual, they're shooting his reveal, his motive on the movie cameras. Like, that's meta on meta. Like, that I think would have been maybe just a little bit creepier and more exciting than, another house party. But it's cool. At least the house party has these cool trap doors. It's this Hollywood mansion. I mean, it works.
But that
it works well.
It's something about it. It does work well, and I do like it. But there's also something that's so big and all the trap doors that makes that very zany and wacky.
Very Scooby Doo.
Whereas like
the way
almost like secret passageway and all that stuff. I was like,
book in the bookcase.
Yes, the books, and they're like, and Gail and Jimmy can't get in.
I think at one point, Parker Posey basically falls through one of them, and her face goes like, "Whoa!"
I know. Which again, I'm like, I love it, but I'm like, okay, this is getting goofy. Like how she's just like, and then she runs down the stairs, and then comes back up. It's just like,
yes.
Although her death scene is interesting, and I remember as a kid, I thought for sure the way she died, because we didn't see her face. She's stabbed at that mirror while Dewey's shooting and then falls through. I thought for sure, I'm like, she's gonna get up later, and she all this time is the other killer. But no, she's dead. I just thought, like, usually we see like their face
she claims at one point that they, in one version of the script that she saw, that she was in on it. Like at one of the rewrites that they had, that she was definitely in on it. But a lot of people that did this movie, because there were so many rewrites, they don't even remember like half of like, oh, like maybe I was the killer at one point. I don't think Scott Foley, when he got cast, didn't know he was until they, which is, I think it's cool when they shoot these movies for the most part. A lot of people don't know until towards the end. Like Jack Quaid didn't really know he was until they're like, "Hey, we're gonna pull you aside like late in the game and let you know." Same thing with Mikey Madison. Like she didn't really know right away either.
That's so interesting.
I think it is really cool that they don't find out until they like towards the end, and they usually only give some of the people, and only the really people involved in those scenes, those script pages. Like, hey, so everyone doesn't know. Like
I love that too. Some of the cast doesn't know until, I guess, seeing the final cut. That's pretty cool. I like that. But yeah, it seems like I remember Skeet Ulrich apparently like spoiled that he's the killer in an interview. Luckily, it was not a very big interview, but like, so he knew. Yeah. So the first movie, there was no secrecy with the script, right? But then 2 and 3, a lot of secrecy. And then 4, actually, surprisingly, they're like the actresses that auditioned for Jill knew. Because I don't know if you guys heard, Aubrey Plaza said one of the worst auditions of her life was auditioning for Jill for Scream 4 because she was told, you're the killer, so deliver this as the killer.
So she acted all killery.
So she acted like super weird, and they're like, what are you doing? She just was like, well, yeah, you told me I'm the killer, so in every scene I'm gonna just be a killer. And it's like, no, you don't get it. Yeah, so it is interesting how some movies they went all for like, hey, we're gonna cast you and you don't know what you're getting yourself into, and some they just let it be known right off the bat, And
I get the secrecy, because I know with Scream 2, they, they had Mickey and Hallie, the Elise Neal's character, and then and then those pages got leaked online, so they had to pivot away from that and change it while they were filming.
But Kevin Williamson has said, and maybe it was on Happy Horror Time, because he did a great interview with them. They're great guys, another podcast. But he apparently has said, which I didn't believe at first, that like that was a purposely leaked script that was never
really?
Yeah. But like I'm like, oh, it was supposed to be Derek and Hallie, right? It was going to be the boyfriend again and Hallie, right? And yeah, he said like, yeah, the Weinsteins just really wanted a few different scripts. I guess there was one that I didn't read. I read that one. There was one that with Dewey as a killer. So like they all were intentionally never going to be the real thing. So who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I remember reading parts of the leaked Scream 3 script, but I guess it was maybe leaked intentionally. I didn't get to the end. I don't even know if it was. I remember reading the opening. It was a different opening with Ben Damon and his girlfriend Christine. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that was also intentionally.
You
like,
talked
fake.
a little bit about like what the movie was originally one. Did you want to elaborate on that a little bit? Like what Scream 3 was going, like their idea for it, and they might use it, they might eventually use it.
Right, they should.
And,
I mean, right, but yeah, you guys, I'm sure have seen, and I'm sure people listening have heard. But yeah. So from what I remember reading, so Kevin Williamson had his whole idea was to bring 3 back to Woodsboro. So that would have been interesting. I'm honestly glad we didn't go back to Woodsboro yet. I think 4, it made sense. 4 basically took a lot of his idea for 3. So we go back to Woodsboro. And let me think. I'm trying to remember because now I'm getting my Aaron Kruger and my. Okay, I'm pretty sure Kevin Williams, right? The different like ideas, but I'm pretty sure Kevin's original idea were back in Woodsboro while they are filming Stab 3 in Woodsboro. They wanted, like the makers, Sunrise Studios wanted Stab 3 to actually take place where the real murders took place, so that's interesting. Yeah. And so all these kids, all these teens at Woodsboro High, because the town is now famous for the Stab franchise, want to be involved. And I feel like some kids were even like interning on the set or whatever. But so the movie club or whatever is so interested in Stab 3 that it's this cult of Ghostface that apparently, I don't know, I still don't know if I believe it, but I guess Matthew Lillard was contacted to be in Scream 3.
Like the main,
right, to be masterminding this group of teens from prison. But it's like, well, why did we never talk about him being in prison in 2? Because Gail would have absolutely mentioned that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. But so, yeah, he apparently was masterminding this plan with them and teaching them from prison. And so somehow Sydney gets involved. I'm sure she doesn't live in Woodsboro. And somehow Gail and Dewey, maybe they already were together and living in Woodsboro, like what happens in 4. Anyway, so the big finale was big bloodbath. And Sydney realizes that all of these dead teens actually are not dead, and they all rise up and they're all looking at her and they're all in on it, which is very scary because it's like, oh shit, how is she gonna like get out of this? But that goes back to Columbine. Like they all realize like we can't have a bloodbath of teens. That's like so
right.
And apparently that's also a reason why they nixed Angelina being the second killer, Emily Mortimer. And I didn't think about that until literally like half an hour before talking to you guys. I didn't put that together that because, Scream 3 is the only one so far that has just one killer, which at times, right. And you guys must agree, at times it's totally implausible. It's like, how are you supposed to like we're not just at like in a neighborhood, we're driving all around LA, like notorious for traffic. So how are you like doing all that? Right. But, so it was going to be Angelina, but I guess the Weinsteins thought Columbine was 2 killers. We got to, and like, this was at a time when people were like talking about like movies are much like how in the first movie, movies don't create psychos, right? But people are like, actually movies do create psychos. So they were like, no, just have one killer. We can't have it mimic Columbine. So Columbine is all over this movie, even though obviously we got an older cast, slightly older. I mean, they're all like mid-20s, late. So yeah, am I right, Gaius? Is that basically everything that was going to be?
Yeah, that basically was pretty much And to put in the context, like Jackson, there was a lot of stuff that got delayed, and for some reason, there were a lot of things that people were creating. Of course, not knowing that there'd be this real life thing that happened. There were two Buffy episodes that got delayed because of because
Earshot,
one of them.
I remember that one.
Earshot was one that involved a school shooting, but it does have a twist on what that is. And then the season finale, which had like the whole school like kind of banding, like basically
graduation,
graduation had the whole school like attacking the school because the mayor was like the big bad during that season. So that got delayed too. The movie the movie O that had a school shooting that came out a whole like I think 2001. So like it came out.
It was delayed like 2 years.
2 years. It was supposed to come out in 99. So like it was like a lot of stuff at that time. They were like, "Hey, this is too on the nose, too similar. We can't,
right?
Because everyone was blaming like it's the music, it's the movies, it's
video games, it's movies.
Yeah.
Especially even The Matrix. I mean, The Matrix came out before Columbine by a month, but like even that, like because of what those killers wore, you know, and the violence, and so it was a really crazy time, and I remember it well. Like it was a crazy time for movies. Any movie that had to do with any cool action or blood or anything, like it was just like, ooh, yikes! Like either postpone or totally redo it or rewrite it, you know. Yeah, it was just a bummer, you know. So that's why I go easy on certain movies of this time, like Teaching Mrs. Tingle, you know, which a lot of people hate, but it's fun. It's mostly a thriller comedy. It is not horror whatsoever.
And it definitely got diluted because of that too. I mean, the original title was Killing Mrs. Tingle, and they're like, nope, can't do that.
Oh boy.
And everything, and then it became more of a comedy rather than like, you know, being as dark as maybe it should have been. So yeah, a lot of stuff was like affected.
Because apparently, and I forget if I already said this, sorry if I'm repeating, but like apparently even the Weinsteins, what we got in Scream 3, they wanted even less blood and no on-screen violence. To the point where I'm like, wait, the finished product is already really tame. I mean, like I remember reading, I forget the exact number, but like there were an X amount of buckets of blood used in 1, and then actually a little bit less in 2, and then very few buckets of blood in 3. So it's funny to see how as the movies got more popular, you know, at that time, the first 3, they kind of made it more tame, you know. But Wes had to apparently tell them, I read a quote somewhere, he was like, apparently he said like, listen guys, we're either going to make a Scream movie or we're going to make another movie. Like we cannot make a Scream movie that has no on-screen murder or violence. I mean, you know, and especially when you think of it, this soundtrack is my least favorite of the Scream films.
The Creed music,
the Creed. Oh my God, Weinstein's made some pact with the devil over Creed. I mean, Creed is all over. Not only
even got a poster in someone's room.
In Sydney's fake room. Sydney Prescott is a big Creed fan. I believe that.
Yeah.
Right? Oh yeah. In the first movie, she has Indigo Girls, and now here she's a Creed fan. Okay, sure, I believe that. Right. But like even Creed's in like Halloween H2O, there's a song there. I think even The Faculty, like all their movies, it was like you made some great deal with Creed. It's crazy. But like the soundtrack is so like macho, masculine, angry, rock. Like this is the most kind of rock, which I don't love already. And it you know, the previous soundtracks were so good. So I'm like, wait, you know, but the movie is so tame. So I'm also like, there's a juxtaposition here that's a little weird, you know. Yeah.
I did want to ask you guys about Patrick Dempsey, because we were supposed. I mean, I think the plan was to get him back for the 7th movie. Because in Scream 5, they did say that, you know, she has a husband named Mark, and that's his name. Yeah. And that's his name in this movie, and they have kids. And from what I know, I mean, I heard 2 things: that he wanted a lot of money to do Scream 7, and Patrick Dempsey is notorious for this. That when he was re-upping his like Grey's Anatomy contracts, they're always like he was always difficult to work with because he always wanted more money than he probably deserved.
Well, I just have to say real quick, he's a Mainer, and since I've lived in Maine for the last 5 years,
is he?
I'm just gonna. Oh yeah, he's from right near Portland, Maine, Lewiston. But I'm just gonna say, and this is gonna get me in trouble, but you know, I've learned in the indie film world here, Mainers like to really get paid well. Like they don't want to work. So it's like, they're like, all right, you want me to get out of bed and work for you? Okay, well, it's going to be this. And I'm like,
then. Yeah.
You know, so that's just my perspective. It's so you should just delete that. But
no, it's well, if you want me to,
no. But I just think that's a little interesting. I'm just making that observation. That's simply all.
He's living up to the
up to the
main mentality of like, all right, exactly. I'll come back, but you gotta, you know.
And it's like, it's interesting because it's Spyglass, and I think he is signed for Thanksgiving 2, which is a Spyglass movie. So they were like, that deal should have been easy to make for Scream 7, but it was not. But we're not gonna get him. We're getting Joel McHale instead.
Yeah.
So but I do want to ask you like what you thought of him in this movie, and does it feel like forced chemistry between him and Neve Campbell? Because I didn't really buy it entirely, but I'll ask you guys how
Jackson, you go first. I want to hear from you.
Honestly, like I enjoy him as an actor. There was nothing about his character in this movie that I thought found particularly memorable. I guess I was impressed that he wasn't in on it because for a moment there, I thought he was for sure.
Oh, it was a heavy hand. They kept like going like, oh, he likes movies. You know, like he was really into like he made the quotes about Seven and like Hannibal
Yes.
Lecter. I'm like,
and I love at the end when he arrives at the party, you know, once Sydney's there and he's there with the gun, that actually to this day still kind of creeps me out. He's good when he's just staring at her. I'm like,
oh, I thought that was the reveal for sure, which I guess this movie's or the series is known for rug pulling and, you know, setting things up that don't end up happening. But I felt, because I haven't seen this since I was like a preteen, and so I completely was oblivious to, I remembered Roman, but I thought, again, I couldn't remember that this is the movie that only had the one killer. So I was like, obviously there's gonna be twists and turns. So I thought for sure he was gonna be in on it. Other than that moment and that really, really bad delivery where Sydney asks what's his favorite scary movie, and he goes, "My Life." Oh man.
Well,
I did not like that.
It's the line is a little, and then the way he so seriously gets in her face, it's like,
yeah. It's like,
she's
geez,
like,
man.
we just met.
You
What?
can tell like the way that was written, like that scene was probably like written like Aaron Kruger was probably like, oh, this is a really serious, like this scene has nuance, and maybe it did on paper,
for sure.
But like the way, I mean,
execution,
she's fine in the scene. Like I never have any problems with Neve Campbell. Like at this point, she knows the character so well that she can probably play it in her sleep.
Right.
But like I thought like she actually has like a few really solid, like the Woodsboro stuff when she's looking at the tape of Randy, which is also like when they're watching that video, like you actually get see in her face like missing him and all that stuff. So she's really good.
I
in
love that
like,
scene. Yeah,
she has a really good expressive, like it's something in her eyes that's always like expressive, where you can like tell that what she's feeling. So like she's good in that scene with him. But I do agree. I chuckled when he said "My Life."
Yeah, I was like, maybe if he's like turns around on his way to the door and like jokingly says like "My Life," like that's a completely different line. But yeah, his delivery.
Because when she says "Mine too," that actually was fine. Like she acts the way she delivers it, it's fine. Yeah, and but like it's because he's leaning in so close to her, and I guess it's supposed to like.
I think all he needed to do was maybe. Like maybe he just needed to kind of, because I think he's like on the way out, so maybe he just needed to like kind of grab the door frame and just kind of look over shoulder.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And like
her kind of chuckle and be like, "Oh, tell me about it" or something like that. That's a way better. But and like one of those scenes or moments where levity would have made sense there instead of other places where it's played for laughs. Like it just felt this movie has an identity crisis, I think, in a lot of places.
Yes, Jackson, well said. It's totally an identity crisis. Because I'm sure Wes Craven probably wanted him to lean in so that we're creeped out by him, because it's kind of like this like Billy Loomis kind of, you know. But I think what could have been creepy is, what if like what we're saying, he's sort of just standing back a bit and she says "Mine too," and then what if he kind of like maybe slightly creepily like rubs her shoulder, or I don't know, like there could have been another way to still have a nice moment, but still it's like she's unsure. It's a little strange.
There's other ways to do it, but yeah.
That's funny.
Before we talk about some of these indie moments, I wanted to ask you, because Kevin Williamson, I guess, commented about the scene at the house at Jennifer Love Hewitt's house, Parker Posey's house, where the power goes out, but the fax machine is still working. And he was really upset. He was really upset because he was like, "Yeah, I'm sure they thought that was like a really brilliant scene." And I didn't think about it when I saw it in theaters. I was like, "Oh, it's kind of funny that he's sending script pages to the fax machine." And I was like, "Oh yeah, like it would still be working if all the power is out in the house." I was like, whatever. But he was like little mistakes like that is what bothers him about the movie, because like they didn't really like think about it and execute it well. But I do love the dialogue in there when she's just whirling back in the house. She's like, "I want to know what happens," and then like like, "Wait for the fucking movie." Like you don't have to like.
Oh, that's funny.
Like,
I don't think I ever caught that. That is so funny.
She keeps screaming, "I want to know what happens. I want to know what happens." Like,
yeah. Oh my god, that's so funny. Yeah, that scene is tough because
that scene to work too. Like a lot of stuff has to happen. You have to ensure that someone goes back inside and then lights a match and then make sure the house blows up. There's a lot about that scene that
that is a lot of setup.
You're right. You're so right. Like the killer's really hoping that they do exactly what needs to happen, you know, for that to be pulled off. Yeah.
And what if they killed everybody instead of just what's his face? Yeah, what if everyone blew up?
You're so right. That's true. Then it's like, oh well, okay, we just got to the end of the movie faster.
A lot shorter.
Right.
I'm always wondering when I'm watching screen. I'm not overthinking it, but like, how much is it? Because like they all attack like Gail, Dewey, Sydney way before the finale, but there's always the big reveal in the finale. Like, I want you to know who I am. And I'm like, well, all those like previous attacks were you just trying to scare them? Like, is your intention,
he's just messing around?
Is your intention to kill them, or like what's the main goal there?
Yeah,
a little over,
I know.
but like,
I think that sometimes too. Yeah, I think that
they,
sometimes too, where it's like, okay, why didn't you want to do it like then? You know what? But I guess it's just like a warning, and then it's like later. You know, I do have a fondness for the explosion scene, but it's also just so crazy. It's so crazy, all of it, and their outfits and like, it is. I have to say, it is scary when the security guard, not really when he dies, that's a little goofy in the trailer,
when he walks back in the house,
when he arrives back at the like front door, and he's like, that is kind of spooky the way it's lit. But then we go into it's just so Scooby. And I was really watching Emily Mortimer and Matt Kiesler this time in that whole scene, and they are overdoing it. They were told have fun, because Matt Kiesler's in the back of the group and he is like never not flailing. He's just like
his arms like a fish out of water.
Yes. So I'm like, whoa, okay, yeah. The instruction from the studio was have more fun in this movie. Like, do not take it seriously, you know? And the fax machine, I mean, wow, it instantly dated the movie, because even by then, yeah, like my parents had a fax machine in the house, but we weren't really using it that much anymore. Like, email was absolutely around, you know? So
never have sent a fax before.
Oh,
there you go.
Wow. Honestly, you're not missing much. Yeah, it was kind of annoying.
There's a fax machine at the office I work at, but I've not actually really had to use it. I take stuff off of it, but yeah, it does help date the movie. But I feel dumb for having not realized that it wouldn't have worked without the power on. I didn't really catch that moment.
That's true.
To be fair, Jackson, until I heard that interview with Kevin Williamson, because I've seen this movie a lot. I was like, that's all right. This is a pretty fun scene, like whatever. But when he said like, how would the fax machine work with the power on? I was like, duh. Oh, yeah,
movie logic.
Duh. You had to suspend disbelief, and I was like, yeah, it wouldn't work. That's so silly.
You're so
and I know
right.
people online are like, maybe there's like a backup generator and blah blah blah. I'm like, no.
Okay. Yeah.
well, you know,
I
would love. Oh my god, that would be like a great like TikTok video. I would love to believe that like, okay, maybe there's a backup generator, but what? So you mean to tell me Roman is like in Jennifer's basement shutting off the power, but then clicking on the generator? Like, you know what I mean? Like, that would be funny, right?
Yeah.
Oh man. But no, going back real quick, I'll mention Gaius real fast about Patrick Dempsey. I actually love him in the movie. I think he's an interesting character. I think he's not your typical detective, and apparently he was cast the day before shooting began.
The day before, he
which is wild.
He had no prep at all.
Because do you know who apparently was gonna be that character? I didn't know until recently. David Boreanaz, which is so interesting. I think he would have been distracted.
But he did Valentine instead.
I know Valentine's fun, right? I mean, not great, but it's fun. But yeah, so I guess they were really like getting him, and then things changed, maybe Angel or whatever. So I think Patrick's a better fit. David was just so pretty. He just would be distracting. I don't know. He's too, you know. But no, I like Patrick a lot, and I actually really do love that they have a little bit of the romance kind of fits for me. I think it kind of works. It's not too heavy. Because it's not like Sydney's like looking for it. It's just kind of like this nice little accidental thing. I love his banter with his other cop friend, who's really funny. Who I read in a version of the ideas. I guess he was maybe going to be a killer, which is really out of left field. I guess they use the detective killer thing later on. I do kind of love like finding the trivia and being like, oh, okay, they saved that for later. They saved that for that one, you know?
That is fun.
But I had no idea. I did realize, a couple things I never knew until like literally this week. Okay. I had no idea. We haven't even talked about the infamous bangs. We can save that. We can totally save that for later. But I did not realize, Gaius and Jackson, that was a wig. I thought all this time that was her real hair, but it's fake. So like,
why put a wig on her?
I'm like, wait a minute. So that's fake, and you still went with it?
Did it on purpose.
Just use her natural hair.
It was very distracting. At the beginning, I got used to it, but that was the first thing I noticed when she's on stage at the university addressing that crowd. I'm like, what is on her head?
Yeah, you're like, is that like a
it.
headband or something? What is that, right? So that I did notice this about 5 years ago, the last time I watched this for its 20th. I did notice some scenes on Nev, she's wearing a wig, I guess because of Drowning Mona,
she was
and
doing
maybe
Drowning Mona,
some scenes you can tell it's her real hair, like the scenes at her house, the scenes on the film set, but in the police station, you can actually kind of tell the next time you watch, if you haven't noticed, when she's like on the phone or talking to Patrick Dempsey, that hair ain't moving. That hair is very stiff. It looks good, but so those things I noticed. And oh my gosh, what was the other thing? Oh, I did not know until literally this week that the whole finale was different. Like the bones were there, but like Patrick Dempsey apparently, like once he has his last scene with Nev in the police station, we never see him again. I'm like,
again?
Right? Like, and they didn't reshoot.
That's how you could tell, like, I could tell that the movie was like just scatter shots.
Yes.
But they were like,
yes.
But they were just like, I feel like on the day they were like, oh, he should be here. Call him, bring him in.
Right.
Like, why?
I mean, the poor script
supervisor.
supervisor, when you think about it, like whoever the script supervisor was, like with these rewrites and like having to like put them in the script and make sure like, okay, we have continuity and the shots match. I mean, it's actually kind of amazing the movie turned out as good as it did, honestly, you know? But yeah, so I didn't realize he wasn't even in the finale. They reshot the finale with him being part of it, the whole red herring thing we're talking about, how he's involved in the ending. They reshot that in January, a month before the movie came out. That is crazy. Crazy.
Wow. Yeah.
So, because I can't imagine him not being part of the finale. And then, of course, the very last scene, which we'll talk about before we wrap up. I love the last shot so much. But even that was shot in, they shot it apparently with him 3 different ways. One way, he's not in that at all. It's just the trio. And then one way, which we got where he's a little hurt. And then one way where he wasn't in the finale at all. So he's just happy to hang out and he's not hurt at all. So just crazy, crazy, crazy. That's all I wanted to say real quick before I forgot.
It really, I mean, like movies like this where you hear about how like troubled productions are, it really shows you like one, how difficult it is to make a movie, and then how difficult it is when all these pieces aren't in place. Where, and this is also, I think, another issue of like, you know, if a movie's not really ready to be made, right? Like, you know, they could have maybe waited for Nev Campbell to be done filming her movie and then like used her more, but they were like, probably no, we want this now. I'm like, there's always like that, the whole like, and I'm not saying necessarily the movie was rushed per se, because like Scream 2 came out in 97, right? So
yeah,
like,
they filmed that real fast.
Real fast. So like there was at least a bigger gap between 2 and 3, but it just seemed like even with the gap, they weren't ready to do it like fully. Yeah. And also like, and they also probably didn't want to wait for Kevin Williamson to not be busy, because he was pretty busy at the time. Then the Weinsteins were notorious for not wanting to wait. They wanted stuff when they wanted it.
Right. Actually, you know, the more you're listing all these reasons to wait, it's really it's really crazy. And it's just funny. It shows such a difference in studio mindset between then and now. Then, I mean, Scream 2 came out 51 weeks after Scream 1. I mean, it wasn't even a full year. It was so fast. It was all about churn it out. You know, with Saw, like for a while there, once a year, right? Now, you don't get that. That's pretty rare to get once a year. You know, you get like usually 2 years or even more, you know, between sequels. So it just shows, I think back then they're like, wait, we're already like, you know, behind. We didn't get this out in 98 or 99. So it has to be February 2000, you know, like they just didn't want to wait. So it's crazy because in hindsight, I think maybe just take a few more months at least, you know?
Yeah, and that happens with a lot of movies. I mean, like with Jackson, when we covered X2, I think I mentioned briefly about X-Men: The Last Stand and how like they rushed that out, the third one, because like the second one did so well, and they were like, well, hey, let's maybe, I mean,
strike while it's hot.
In hindsight, maybe we don't wait for Bryan Singer, but like maybe we don't get Brett Ratner. I don't know. So like that's what they did, and they just rushed that.
No,
so like
because that second one, oh my god, what a movie! I remember I had that poster on my wall of all of the X2 was like amazing, right?
X2 is so good, but that studios do it all the time where they're like, no, we need it now, like we need this to come out now, and I think that's what happened with this movie. It's just like they just, and I still feel bad for poor Wes. Like when I think about it, like I feel like he dealt with so much, actually across all of them. I mean, I'm pretty sure like each of them was different, but like I think once he did 3 and 4, that he was probably done with Dimension and like dealing with the Weinsteins and you know all their
Cursed, another
another one, like all their mandates and stuff. Like they really did, and then he also did Music of the heart for them as well, and for Miramax, and that was another shoot that was rough for him. Just because of them, and like
I still have never seen that, but I really want to. Wes's only non-horror film, and the only film he directed an actor to get an Oscar nom. Meryl got the Oscar nom.
And there's a story there where they wanted the Weinsteins wanted Madonna for that movie.
Yeah.
And instead of asking themselves, they wanted Wes to kind of court her, and it didn't really work out the way that they wanted to. And then when they realized that they didn't want her, they're like, no, okay, then you tell her that we don't want her. And he was like, what? You guys were the ones that like, why am I doing all that? So that's why a lot of people think, because he did that movie before Scream 3. That's why they were like, no, put that stuff in with like the whole studio head and like how he's kind of a pervert. Throw all that in there and see what they say. And I think they were so narcissistic and like they just didn't really like get that they were being made fun of or like they were being poked at with that character. And like it really is like, especially what we know now, like knows about who they were as people. And like, and of course, like, when we saw the movie in 2000, like we didn't know anything about them being like that. At least I didn't. So like it's when you watch the movie years later that you're like, oh, he really was like,
it's a great Easter egg.
Yeah, he was poking fun of them hard. And like and their ego is so like huge that they probably were just like they just didn't.
It's truly shocking. It truly is shocking that they were, well, at least Harvey. Well, we'll just say they, because Bob knew, but like they were doing stuff that was not cool. And here's a movie that you're making and paying for about like Hollywood guys doing stuff that is not cool, and you're just like, all right, like, ooh, that is
about overconfidence, huh?
Overconfident, narcissistic, like that is twisted. Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's a couple more things. The Randy tape. I guess the Randy tape for some of us, maybe more so me and Mark than Jackson, but when he got killed in Scream 2, I pretty devastated. I know they had to kill someone important. They had to kill someone important, and I got it. Just didn't think it should have been Randy, because Randy was kind of like, I think he was like the audience voice when we were watching those movies.
Totally.
He's he's like us. So like the whole, even for a little bit, having Randy back, even via videotape, was actually, I still like that scene, and it very much.
I agree. Yeah, I thought it was so perfect to see him on a VHS tape, right? Like that made so much sense for Randy, like how cute, right? Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I'm one of the few people, I mean, it was so sad to see Randy go, but I remember seeing that on screen and being thrilled. Like, like you have no idea what's going to happen to any of these people.
Proud of the movie for going there and like taking that shot.
I think it makes Scream 2 so good.
I get it. I mean, like my heart.
Sad.
It's
it's sad, but you gotta. That's what these later films. It's like, some good surprises, but like
6 or 5, right? Or I guess like 5 is exempt,
especially a middle of the movie daytime kill. I mean, Scream 5 kind of does it with Judy, with Marley Shelton, but
Marley Shelton,
with but like, and that was cool. That was surprising, but like, she's no Randy, so like, sometimes you got to kill your darlings to really, make a great shocking story.
It shocked the audience. Yeah. I gotta catch myself for being a hypocrite, because this is like I've done it a lot on the show where, because I did say like, well, Mason Gooding and all those people, some of them should be dead by now, right? And I like them, they're likable, but then I'm like, no, Randy, why they kill Randy? And then when like Jackson and I were covering the Black Christmas remake, I was like, all these characters are so bitchy. There's no likable character here. And then he kind of brought up like, he's like, you felt the same way about all the characters in Halloween, the remake, and you didn't like them at all. And I said I liked some of the girls in Black Christmas. I was like, yeah, but it's different. I have a good excuse for it. It just felt different.
Yeah.
But I gotta catch myself.
It is funny how a lot of these movies of like that time, and maybe even still today, but like especially that time, like bitchy dialogue was like so popular. Like friends were mean to each other.
Mean-spirited,
Like they're very snarky, very snarky. Like calling someone a bitch was like a term of endearment. Like,
totally. Oh, and it was like aggressive. It was like, you fugly bitch. Like, why would you ever wear that? Okay, I love you. Like it was hardcore. I mean, even not so much in this one, but like even in the first Scream when they're at the fountain and like the things Billy is calling like Stu. I'm just
they're supposed to be like best friends.
So it was just of that time. Yeah.
All right. So what do we think about the reveal? Were you surprised?
Oh, okay. Waiting for this moment. I wanted to be the one to ask you guys, because I feel like in this trio, like I don't think like my opinion of it is very different. Where again, like I'm not like as attached, and I have seen these movies much later in my life, and definitely fewer times. So I wouldn't be surprised if I feel differently. But I wanted to see in the context of like, if we just count the first 3 movies and looking at this as like a trilogy when it was a trilogy, how does the reveal stack up? Like, is it one of the moments that, I know, Mark, you alluded that this is like the weaker of the entries. Is any of that to you because of the reveal, or is the reveal exempt from that criticism? And Gaius, I want to know what both of you guys think, and whoever wants to answer it first. I know, Gaius, you pitched the question. I'll answer by saying it's one of the, it's far and above like my least favorite moment of the movie. I don't even like really the character of Roman. Yeah. He's my least favorite Ghostface. I really think like the stuff with Sydney's mom undoes like Billy's motivation. I thought that was great in Scream 1, and I think to retcon that was sour to me, and I had completely forgotten about that moment from this movie. Like I said, I'd only seen it the one time years and years ago, so it was almost like a first time viewing again, and that didn't sit well with me. I didn't like the reveal. I've been dying to know what you guys think of the reveal and if it works.
Okay, you go.
So what I will say positively about it first is that I didn't expect him. They do a good job of covering it up, at least.
Yes.
For the most part, and then you see him dead in the little casket thing. So I was like, oh well,
and that got me. I was like, okay.
But the reveal itself, I don't remember what it wasn't David, but I don't remember what friend was sitting to my left. But I will never forget, like when he takes his mask off and says who he is. The person, like my friend to my left, just went, "Huh," and that was it. and I think that says a lot about like where we were kind of at that point. Where like this. I was like, oh, that's who it was. And
it's got to be somebody.
Gotta be somebody. I will say I don't like I agree with you, the whole undoing why Billy and Stu did all this in the first movie and having like a puppet master behind it the whole time. I didn't like that either. And I guess
it feels very Spectre for James Bond. Do not like that. Yeah.
I think
it was me the whole time.
I think it is very like,
didn't feel earned.
It didn't feel earned at all, especially because like you're dropping all these nuggets about Sydney's life in this movie. Like, oh, she had a brother, right? And I guess she wouldn't know because her mom. There was a lot that happened with her mother that we learned in this movie, and there's just a lot of information that gets dumped on you, and we're supposed to just accept it. Like, okay, this is what it is. I agree. I'll even say of all of them. I think this is my least favorite reveal of all of the movies. Like, I will say Justice for Jill all day. I think she's like one of like the most underrated like Ghostface.
Jill was a true shock. Yeah.
That one surprised me. And that was and it's the way she stabs her right before, like, was like, whoa, girl, whoa. Did not expect that to happen at all. But like, I don't like the retconning of it. It's not Scott Foley's fault. I don't
think it's him.
I think he does the best he can. And honestly, when they are going back and forth, I do love that Sydney is so done at this point where he's trying to explain his motivations, and she's like, I've heard all this shit before, and like, kill people and all. Like that stuff was great because she was like, yeah, I've done this 3 times already. I don't need to hear why you're doing it. But it I guess to kind of put it in like a box, it doesn't feel earned, and it kind of feels like it almost feels like a last minute kind of like choice, like almost like they threw a dart at the board and were like, yep, him.
Agreed.
and then we'll say like this is why this person did it. And
all that backstory exposition is in that one scene. And it feels like this just came from nowhere. And I was like, this could have been set up so much better.
I guess you can say the same thing, like, but it's not like a exposition dump in Scream 1 where like when Billy has to explain why he's doing it, it's just a very short line, right? It's just like your slut mother was fucking my father, right? And that's why my mom moved out and abandoned me, and that was it. I mean, like you didn't really need a whole like. I think Roman had like a visual presentation of like what was going on, like there was. So I didn't love it. I still don't love it. It's my least favorite thing about the movie, but again, I don't think it's his fault, and I actually think the action in that scene is fun, and I think their
fight is great.
Their fight's great. Their interaction's great, and even I love like my friend. Someone pointed out too on like one of my friends was like, even Nev Campbell Sydney looks like, because I guess she would be like, well, who the fuck are you? Because she doesn't know who he is. She doesn't know that Robert Bridger is the director, and like she's like brother. She's like, okay, like her facial reaction is how we felt, at least I and not my audience when we saw it in theaters. So I agree with you, man. It's my least favorite reveal, and it's my least favorite thing about the movie. I think that's like it's the weakest element of the movie, and I hate the heavy-handed like here's everything you need to know about why it's happening.
Yes.
It's like it's so long, and it's just like, all right, I've already tapped out like her by the time he's explaining it all. But that's me. I wonder if Mark feels any differently about it.
Interesting. This is so interesting. So, okay. So much. Oh my God. So much to talk about. I could talk about obviously this movie for hours. So, okay. I think it's a major mistake that Sydney never met Roman, even in passing. Some creepy passing moment.
In this movie, like
because she meets Angelina, and I don't know if you guys know this. You probably have seen. Like, I actually need to rewatch someday and watch with the commentary. I've never heard the commentary on this one from Wes, but Wes did confirm that like they were filming it as if Angelina was the second killer. So that whole great bathroom scene, which is a fun nod to the bathroom scene in the first one, that is Wes is quoted saying like that is Sydney. She's unknowingly like discovering who is a killer because Angelina was like putting the costume on to attack her, you know? So I feel like maybe in that same scene, like maybe right before she goes into the bathroom, she bumps into Roman and it's a little spooky and weird and a little red herring, you know, like, oh, I'm just like it's shutting down. I'm getting my stuff, but wow, it's an honor to meet you or something. And she might be like, oh, okay. But like, it could be brief. It is such a mistake that she never met him. It's kind of why Scream 5 to me, for me, Scream 5's killers are probably the least interesting. I mean, Richie, what's his name? Quaid, that was interesting. And Mikey Madison's a great actress, but like, Sid doesn't know who these fucking strangers are.
Yes.
Like, what does she care? And their motive, she's like, you know, so it really is tough. If you're going to have Sydney in the final act, in the climax, like, she has to know a little bit about this killer, you know? So that was a mistake. And on top of that, it was... I sort of understand why they wanted it just to be her and him. But when you think of the previous endings, Gail was always around. Dewey was always like basically almost dead, you know, but there was Randy was around in the first ending, you know, Cotton. There's always a couple of them hearing the motive. This time it's only Sid. So it's like, this is the time you're only going to have Sid. And she's going to be like, I'm sorry, who are you? What did you say your name is again? Yeah. She hasn't watched your movies. She doesn't know who you are. And like, she doesn't care. So it's like, you're not even going to have Gail or Dewey or, I mean, they're the only people really left. Or at least like Kincaid. Kincaid knows him, you know, Patrick Dempsey. That would actually be kind of interesting and maybe make their bond even stronger as Gail and Dewey are like, hey, we can't get in. Like maybe it's her and Kincaid. And actually, oh my God, that actually would have been more interesting because it would be a callback to Scream 1 when she's not sure to trust Randy or Stu, if you remember that at the party. And she says, fuck you both. What if it was Kincaid and Roman? And she's like, oh my God, I don't know, you know, but actually Kincaid is a good guy. Like that would have been more interesting for her to have some backup where it's not just Roman giving this monologue. It's also Kincaid helping filling in the blanks as well. So, you know what I mean? So it's heavy. It's wonky. It's like kind of a thud. And I totally agree. When he takes the mask off, like, I believed he died, you know? And then, again, I thought it was Parker Posey because he's in that little silly coffin, died off screen. And then she's right there hiding and she says, is he dead? You know, so I thought, oh my God, this crazy woman is the killer, you know? So it's like, oh wait, I thought you died. And now it's just him, which also our brains needed a second to be like, oh, it's just one solo guy, you know? But here's the thing. This is what works really well for me. And that's what makes me sad that you guys don't like it. I love that it goes full circle and that he was the one to initiate the killing of Maureen Prescott. I love it so much. I think it's what keeps this movie from being bad is it all came back to him and Maureen. He showed up at her door. She slammed that door. She doesn't want to think about her past. Of course, anyone would be so upset and ignored. And then he's stalking her. Like, I wish we saw more of his home video of her. I want to see more of her and Sydney. Like, it's such a bummer that they didn't think like, well, let's kind of put Sydney in like teen clothing and maybe put a wig on her, another one, you know, and have her and mom like walking around the neighborhood, like really twisted stuff. Cause luckily we see Cotton and we see good old Hank Loomis, Billy's dad's back for his little cameo at the motel. show me even more, like, so I love the visual aid. I love that he roped Billy, that he's the one that told Billy about this. Because how else would Billy have known? Maybe from dad, maybe, but it's more interesting if even dad didn't tell him everything that happened and why mom left, like, so I don't know. I think it is so chilling that we are learning even more about Billy through Roman. I know their whole, like, I know you guys were saying retconning. I don't really view it as retconning. I just view it as more information to why. Yeah, we just didn't know that part.
Well, I guess so retconning, like, are we the way we're thinking of it? Because it changes what we thought we knew in that first movie, so that it is a form of retconning, right?
I guess so, yeah, because Billy could have said, like, and he could have told her, like, the person who told me knows everything about you or something, but
right,
they didn't know it back then.
What makes it retconning to me is that it's all delivered in this climactic sequence at the end in one scene. I think if it was if we got more as an audience sprinkled throughout the movie, I wouldn't consider it retconning. So here's my pitch: is instead of the opening with Cotton's death, which you could still work that into the film, how about, unbeknownst to the audience that it's Roman, we see him interact with Maureen and I'm forgive me, I'm a little fuzzy on how if the series ever addresses how she dies, but does Roman say that he kills her? Does he take credit for it?
I think he had Billy do it, right? Or I'm so
Billy.
Yeah, so Billy killed her. Billy killed her, but yeah, in 3 he writes, like, on her headshots, like, I killed her, which is creepy.
Oh right, yes, that's right, on the back.
Because he killed her, like, he's saying that kind of mentally. But yeah, so what's weird is the franchise kind of never decided officially how Maureen died, because I believe somewhere in one of the movies, maybe the first one, her body, they talk about her body hanging from, like, the town square, which is so scary and disturbing.
At that part.
And then
did they not insinuate there was a suicide?
No, not a suicide,
no?
But
okay.
They talk about they think that Cotton raped and killed her.
Yeah.
And so then people kind of got confused, and I was one of them for a while. I thought, ew, so Billy raped her mom. But no. So basically what happened in real life in Scream is Cotton had sex with Maureen while Billy was, like, outside watching, waiting for him to leave. To then they talk about, like, the jacket, like, Cotton left his jacket in the house. Once he leaves, Billy goes in, kills Maureen. Now we don't know if Sydney is home. That's the thing. I feel like some theories said, like, oh, she's home, she, like, heard it happening, and some said she was out, whatever, right?
Okay.
But anyway, so he goes in, he kills her. No sex with Maureen. No, they thought she was raped, because I guess evidence was that Cotton
had sex with her.
Right.
Yeah. So thank God, because that I think would be really, really twisted. And the movies can get twisted, but they're not that dark, right? So yeah, Billy kills her, frames Cotton with the jacket, putting the bloody jacket in, I guess, Cotton's car. I guess he found where Cotton lives and puts it in his car. I don't know, right? So this movie kind of plays with, the murder scene, all the blood in the bedroom. No talk of then hanging her body up, kind of like what they do with Drew Barrymore. So that part we sort of ignored or just didn't get to, Sorry if I'm rambling, but so
it answers some questions and closes some doors. That's great. I would like to see, I think it would work much more if we get a Roman POV of that moment and him, if he is going to take credit for killing Maureen and setting all this up, if that's our opening and we are left wondering, oh, who did this? And then Roman's reveal is, it was me. I'm your brother. She rejected me. This is the motivation. I'm like, oh, then I could be on board with Roman being the killer. But to me, it just feels like he busts out of the closet. I'm your brother. I did all this. And to me, it's like sitting like, who are you? Like, I'm supposed to feel something for this?
I do agree too that the reveals work when there is some kind of connection to her. Like in Scream, like in Scream 2, like having not so much Mickey. I mean, I know they were friends in her college setting, but having it be Billy's mother, at least she knows who she was.
Oh, I love that reveal. And talking about Neve Campbell's, like, acting and her facial expressions, I think that is one of her best, because we never knew that there's a connection between the two of them. So she tells us that with what's on her face, like the Mrs. Loomis. I love that so much. It inspired me.
She also like never really sees her in Scream 2, right? Like it's Gail and everyone else. Like so in Scream 4, it's Jill, it's her cousin, so it's her relative. So that is another connection, right? I agree with you about Scream 5. Like the more I talk about Scream 5, especially after talking about it with Jackson, it feels there's a lot wrong with it, and she does feel like she's shoehorned into a situation that she doesn't even have to be involved in, because it certainly doesn't involve her, right? So the Scream 3 reveal, like, I agree with you. What would have made it work is if I would have like even one scene of them bumping into each other or something where they met at least once, and now there doesn't have to be any hint to like there being some kind of connection. Just like if they would have had one interaction before the ending, which I would have accepted it a lot more. But yeah, her facial expression to like it being him is just kind of like, yeah, well, this is I don't know you. I really don't know you at all. So like,
right? She's like, okay, like literally, if there was a face to ever just say, okay, like that's what she's giving us, and it makes sense. Like she's not going to be. I mean, you have to make it realistic. So yeah, like man, just imagine if she had one other person in there. Like I understand if it's not Dewey and Gale, because then we're getting a little too like, all right, our trio's together. What if this time, right? Like actually, it would have been kind of fun if it was Dewey in there this time, because he's never really part of the finale other than four. So like maybe Gale and Kincaid are out there, and Dewey, and also it's kind of special because Dewey has known what seems like most of her life, because we can assume she and Tatum have been best friends since kids, right? So like he was a cop, he knew her mom, so like that maybe would have made it even more touching. But for him to say like Roman, and like Sydney's like, what? Like just something to help her and help us bridge the connection, right? And I think also what you were saying, Jackson, how like, there's just so much info coming at us quickly. I like the headshots that are placed everywhere. I think that's kind of cool and a great way to reveal this whole other life that Maureen had. But also, I think what would have kept in line with 2, especially because 2, if you remember, there's a scene where Gale and Dewey are making out, and then they see the killer's video footage of like Sarah
all
Michelle,
the like murders together and all the
right? Like that stalker footage, which then they do it again later on, in other films. So like, and I feel like that's just so Scream. That would have been interesting for maybe Kincaid to say like, we got this video, and it's the Maureen affair footage. Maybe if we saw that earlier, it's like, oh shit, whoever's doing this. Maybe if we found that out sooner, that would have been less of like a whoa.
That would have went a long way,
right? And also, I mean, if the movie was made today, I bet a director, how chilling would it be if before we even have like the big opening death scene, what if the movie opens on Sydney's real house? That house from the first, that fans would recognize, like, wait, we know that house from the first movie. And what if like we're like Roman, we just don't know yet, walking up to the house and we just see a hand knock on the door and then like cut to black. Like I just wonder if, like, there could have been an interesting way where it's like, what does that mean? And then talk about full circle, then at the end, it's like, oh, that was a sort of flashback. We just didn't even know it, So there are other ways. Again, the execution was off, and I, feel bad saying that. And it makes sense why it was off at this crazy time for them. But and what's hard is, Roman has grown on me. I don't dislike him as much, but was like you guys, when I was seeing this, I was like, okay, so it's him, and like, God, he's screaming and whining so much, like, and then she's screaming, and I'm like, whoa, this is like kind of, I don't know. I was like, this is kind of crazy, like, and then I still to this day, guys, do not understand the weird phone call thing. So like, okay, she's hiding from him. The room is dark. She's like behind the bar, right? It doesn't, do you know what I mean? So I think he's going to call her to find her. Oh yeah, right, because he got her number somehow earlier. I made a note this time. I'm like, ooh, like how did he get her number? But I guess from Dewey's phone, it goes missing. I don't know. Maybe I'm making it up. Anyway, so he calls her, but she star 69's him, and so his phone rings, and it's a surprise for him. But it's
right.
I don't know, like the way he reacts. I'm like, what am I missing? Your phone is ringing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just star 69. There's something like, maybe if he thought Sydney was dead and she calls him, that would be a reason to look up. But I'm like, why are you looking up? Like, there's this big shocking thing on your phone. It's just star 60. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm probably reading way too much into it. But out of all the times I've seen this, and I just saw it the other day, I'm like, yeah, why that crazy reaction? What's going on with the phone? I don't know. It's just weird to me.
I will say this is the only one because I think at the time, and not so much anymore, but when I first saw it, this was the only one because they play with that whole idea of it being like the end of a trilogy and like even main characters could die. This was the only one when I first saw it that I thought Sydney could die because like when he shoots her, I mean, we were seeing it for the first time. We were just like, you're not expecting how she could get out of that. So I was like, oh, they have the ball. They have the ball to like kill the main character.
It's pretty visceral.
So that was my thought at the time. And like, I think Neve Campbell, I think she said this when she did 5 and going into trying to do 6 and that didn't work out. That they don't want Sydney to die. And I understand that, like why they don't. But there is something, it's not like a hypocrite again, but there is something to be said. Like if we know she's going to survive the entire time, where is the element of surprise when it comes to her?
Right.
I guess there really isn't. But
that's why I also was
that she could have died there, and I was like, oh shit, they were going to do it. And then of course they do it.
It would have been sad, of course, because that at the time we were told this is the final Scream, and every interview on the poster, welcome to the final act, like everything about this movie was this is.
They all said no more. We're not doing any more of these.
So I think that's also maybe. Gaius, that's probably, now that I think about it, I guess I never really thought about it. That's probably why you and I were a little disappointed, because we knew at the time we're never going to get another one of these. So it's like, now that we got more, it hurt. It's not as bad. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, that one. But then we had good moments in 4, 5, 6. You know what I mean? But like that's why I also thought she could have died. Because I mean, he is beating the shit out of her. Like she gets a
it's
really
brutal.
Honestly, it's pretty disturbing.
For a movie that they want to be too violent and because of real life stuff, he beats her up like she's a dude.
Wes was like, all right, you guys had your way for most of the movie. The finale, we're getting rough, But like, so that's pretty visceral. And then he shoots her right in the chest, and like, it looks like we actually see the like the bullet like in her shirt. Like we see the I don't know what the explosion, of the bullet. So it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? We don't see blood because she turns, which was smart. But so it's like, oh shit. That's why I thought she was gonna die in 3. And honestly, when I was watching 4, I was so shook by Jill, and then they're like with the whole roof thing, and like I was like, oh my god, Sydney's going to die in this one, which would have made sense. It would have been sad, but I'm like, oh, you're rebooting it, so it's like out with the old. But then once none of them died, I'm like, oh, okay, so now we just are continuing the pattern, I do like their showdown, and also I think a lot of people who don't like this movie don't love the whole brother thing, but it works for me because, like I said, like I like all the Maureen stuff. I missed how in 4 and then in 5 and 6, I mean, we like kind of stopped talking about Maureen. When 1, 2, and 3, it's all about the mom. It's all about the parents. So I'm excited for 7 now that Sydney's a parent, and like, I'm excited to hopefully like talk about Maureen a bit more, because the whole trilogy is all about mom and your past, like stuff you didn't even know about in the past. But I also like it because it's sort of a nod to Halloween before the retcon, because at this time, Halloween, Laurie and Michael were brother and sister. So I think that's a fun full circle. We see Halloween playing on the screen in 1, and now in 3, Sydney, just like Jamie Lee Curtis does in H2O, like they hold hands for a second before, I kind of liked that.
I didn't like that. So like,
you're like, okay, I hate
that. That stuff feels forced. Because I was like, man, he just whooped your ass. He tried to kill you a few times, and now you have this like final moment of like, well, we're both fucked up. We had like a fucked up mom, fucked up upbringing.
I don't know. It makes me love Sydney even more though.
Let's bond for a second. I'm like, like that.
I didn't look at it as them bonding, but like Sydney's compassion coming through, like ties into her like in her job and like dealing with women in crisis and like just her nature. That's how I looked at it. Like he's taking his last breaths and she's just there for him on his way out. Maybe that was the idea, but in the writing was for them to have a bond and be acknowledged as siblings. But as like a first time viewer, like my interpretation was like it was her being compassionate.
Yeah, I think that's valid. The bond is valid, and I think also I view it as her holding his hand, being kind of like, Maureen Prescott she kind of like didn't do things as well as she should have for both of us. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of like, she's like, I get it. Like, I don't get it. You're a psycho, but like I get your situation a little bit.
In like 15 minutes.
I know. She honestly, Like, no wonder we love her. I mean, she is really forgiving. She just met you. She just like survived, and now yeah. So it's definitely not a perfect film, but there are good ideas in it.
Yeah.
Also Dewey technically kills him, which is also kind of like,
yes.
I mean,
I feel like that takes
that
pressure
was
off
problem.
of Sydney. Yeah.
Well, I mean, but she should be the one to do it. I mean, like,
she should be with this killer, but when you think of it, the first movie, Sydney's the one to put the final bullet into Billy. The second movie, it's Sydney and Gale. Oh, yeah, it's Sydney and Gale. We're not really sure who gives the final bullet to Mickey because they both are, but then Sydney does it for Mrs. Loomis, I'm pretty sure. And then when you think about it, I thought it was kind of fun. It's like, okay, now it's Dewey's turn because Dewey's never in the ending, never had to, you know what I mean? And he's a former cop, so it's like he knows how to actually like shoot someone in the head. So I do think it's kind of fun. That ending doesn't bother me. And again, it's really kind of silly. Head, shoot him in the head. He can't hear, but it's working. And again, it's because Scott Foley was directed to just scream nonstop. I'm like, I know you're the killer, and I know these movies started that whole trend of like, now I'm the killer. You're gonna see the real crazy me, you know. But it's like, Scott, like you can whisper some lines like Billy did, and it's very effective. You can bring it down, you know. So that works for me though, you know. And then the whole post, that whole like, you know, I don't want to say post credits, but post, you know, killer death ending. I love it. I love when she opens her
conclusion
like my heart skips a beat when she opens her gate and leaves it open with the dog, and I love it. I'm like, yes. I love it. The
door blows open and she decides to leave it. I was like, that is so poignant. I didn't expect that.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So
I love it.
So glad you agree.
She's finally free and she's not afraid anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's a fitting conclusion for that character and the other characters too. Like, you know, Dewey and Gale get married, and like it is satisfying in that sense where you're like, oh, your favorite people are happy.
Yes, okay, so like, you're finally like we finally feel safe because you know we never really get a good last look at her in 1 and 2. Well, in 2 we do, and actually,
in Scream 2 she just walks away like she's like.
And we probably talked about this, Gaius, when I was on for Scream 2, but like that last shot, actually, as I get older, is really sad. She is completely alone after doing this twice. At least once she still has Randy, you know, but we end it, of course, with Gale's iconic ending. But like, it's so nice to see her actually look safe. She's home with people she knows well, and like maybe a new love interest, I guess, right? And I'm so glad you guys agree, because you're gonna think I'm an absolute psycho, but when I rewatched the movie the other day, I rewound that final shot, like no lie, 10 times just to truly like feel it, watch everything. Like I love when you know, because it's a few things. She walks in and she's about to put the code in, and even though her back is to us, like, God, Neve Campbell is so good. She's like, you can just feel the thoughts in her body. She's like, well, and then she looks up at the lock, and then Kincaid's like, oh, we're gonna watch a movie, which is also just so perfect. Like, oh, well, you'll have to come find out. Like, so brilliant. And Gale and Dewey are now engaged. And then when she walks away and that door opens, which is kind of crazy because the door, you can tell it was like so pulled open, but no big deal. I'm like, that door isn't just like creaking open. It's like, I'm like, okay, Scooby-Doo. But the way
like
she
snakes
just
could get in the house.
Right, yeah.
Exactly where they're at, yeah.
Right. But the way she just looks at it and walks off, and this is also very nerdy of me, but up until this time, this was the only Scream film to not fade out. It was an abrupt cut. I'm like, wow, we have ended. Like the franchise is over. I was like,
it felt like it was a definitive.
And for 10 years, you had that solace, I guess, right before news of an 11.
And then they were like, money.
And then when they announced 4, I mean, just to put it mildly, my world was rocked. I was like, like I didn't do anything but like just think of like what the hell? Like I was excited. I was scared. I mean, that was like earth-shattering news.
My first exposure to Scream was with 4.
Yeah. 4, you know, we talk about revisionist history. 4 actually, probably even more than 3. People appreciate 4 a lot more now too, because they were saying a lot back then about.
I'm one of them,
especially about like reality TV and being popular for no reason. Like there was a lot of stuff in that movie that was way smarter than.
That motive was
great. Credit for at the time. So like but like anything, like once it's been a few years, people rethink like, oh, this is the best one, and like and I think unfortunately because of the Melissa Barrera stuff and the stuff that went on with after 6, there are people that either don't love the Nev Campbell ones now because they're like, like 5 and 6 is our movie, and like, you guys fuck Melissa Barrera over. Or those people that are like, get over it. It started with Nev Campbell and Sydney. Like, like 5 and 6 were fine. We liked having them. I know like Jackson's not a big fan of Melissa Barrera in those movies. But we got Jenna Ortega, which is great.
Yeah.
Yes. But so there is a definite, like, I feel like there is a like division between Scream fans because of like all the stuff that happened with her being fired and then Nev Campbell coming on for 7 and how they think that's disrespectful to Melissa Barrera. And there's other fans who are like, well, no, like she's been there way before her, and it's not an issue. It's not an issue of disrespect. It's like she started, the franchise started in 96, like before Marissa Barrera was like even like an acting thought. So like it's fine. Like,
and like I mean, obviously I don't know her, unfortunately, but I don't really get a mean bone in Nev Campbell. Like you know what I mean? Like I don't think she would still be around and so like beloved by people she works with if she. So like think about it, like it's not really a great situation no matter what because of the whole Melissa stuff. So like what is Nev gonna stand with her and say I'm done, knowing that they're still gonna make Scream movies, like, and then it's just gonna just water down what she and Wes and everyone made, you know what I mean? So it's like the best thing to do is to hopefully get the money you deserve and to make good movies and keep it going. And I guarantee you guys, I feel like I will not be surprised if Melissa Barrera pops up in 7. If not 7, she's coming in 8 or 9. She's not done. She's not done.
They're going through tough times right now.
I hope Jenna comes back, but I actually get the impression. I don't know.
I booked it busy, man. I don't know.
I get the vibe that like Jenna was like, no, I'm good. Like we might see Melissa before Jenna, which would be weird since their bond was all about like sisters in 5 and 6. I don't know. All this crazy Scream 7 casting news, and now with Chad and Mindy back, I'm like, so how are they back? But Sam isn't. I mean,
like, whenever we covered a Scream anniversary, and there's another one coming out, we asked people like, what are your hopes for this new one they're making? I know, like it was weird news to hear that Scott Foley is coming back in some capacity, and so is Matthew Lillard. Jackson, what do you want out of this? Because I mean, they're putting the focus back on Sydney, right? I mean, that seems to be she has kids in this, and like it's a Sydney centric Scream movie. What do you kind of? I mean, especially because like you weren't like you didn't love 5. You thought 6 was like a little better.
6 was a step up for sure for me from 5, definitely.
So what do you want from it?
I think I want it to be cohesive, and I think that as it stands right now, that narrative is going to have to do some cartwheels to get everything back together. What with like the casting debacle and characters coming back that have been dead for decades. I really want Matthew Lillard's return to the franchise to be handled well and logical. There's only one way I really think that they pull that off, and that's with him being like a ghost or a vision. That's what that's a big reason of why I'm excited for 7 is like his casting, because I love him as Stu. I honestly don't have any expectations for this movie because I have no idea what they're going to try to pull off with it. I am excited for it. I don't know what I really ultimately want it to deliver at like in the context of the series. I don't know where it's headed. I don't know what it's going to look like. I hope it's done well. I love that Kevin Williamson is in the director's chair, though. I'll give it that. Like, I'm excited. I have high hopes. I love that Nev Campbell's back, and hopefully in more of a traditional leading role than she's been in the last 2 movies. But truth be told, I don't know what I want out of the movie. It's in a really weird place, but I'm happy that the departure of Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega didn't kill the movie. That's a plus. So the fact that we're here, that's great. I'm excited for the movie, but I would love not knowing.
I pray that the original Scream 7 draft gets leaked somewhere online, because I would love to know what they were going to do, because they had, I guess, written it, or at least written most of it with, Tara and Sam. Sam? Is it? Yeah, she plays Sam. Yeah, right? So, like, I would love to, because I just love comparing, like, what was the idea and what did we end up getting, You want me to go next, Jackson? Or Gaius, or do you want to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm kind of like Jackson, where I don't really know what my expectations are, because I mean, they're doing a great job announcing the biggest cast in the world. Like, they're doing a great job confusing me
right now.
I mean, there's just like names every week, and I'm like, what? Huh? So we're talking about it. We're all wondering, and we're all either hating it or loving it or confused by it. So it's working. I mean, it's already, the mystery has begun. I do definitely hope. I mean, yeah, Stu is dead. Like, and I feel like 6 even confirmed that by, spoiler alert for the end of 6, when Kirby throws the TV that was thrown onto Stu onto Ethan, I think was his character's name.
I think it was Ethan, yeah.
You know, so like I feel like I read that as like, okay, yeah, Stu is dead. That was the filmmaker saying.
And Roman got shot in the head, like point.
And Roman got shot in the head, so they're dead. So they're either visions. Like Roman would work well as a vision, since especially if like I do hope that this movie has to do with family, like the first 3 did. I'm sure it will. I'd be really shocked if she has at least one teen daughter and a husband, and we're not at all, you know, having a family theme here, right? So Roman could show up as a vision. Stu, that would be so weird for me if he's like a ghost or vision, or, you know, like how Billy was. I don't know if Sydney's really thinking about Stu that much. You know what I mean? Yeah. So my thinking, and some others have said it, I think it could be really, really creepy if the killer is using AI like deep fakes and taunting Sydney with the faces of past killers.
And like, that's why they say that we might get Jill, like Emma Roberts might come back. There's a lot of like those.
That would, oh my God.
Okay.
Like you saying that makes me like, that just made my stomach drop. Imagine Sydney on her phone, you know, getting a video of like Jill. Oh, that's twisted. Like her baby cousin that tried to kill her. Like, oh, you know, like that could be really cool as a way for this new killer or killers to kind of, you know, we got it in 6 where like there's a little bit, you know, each mask of every killer, and now it's even the next step of like, you know, kind of putting their faces on themselves via technology, you know, and really paying homage to all the previous people who tried to kill Sydney but couldn't. And I'm sure the whole motive is, but I'm going to be the one to finally do it, you know? So, and also I said this before with friends, I think a great motive that hasn't really been discussed yet is how Gail especially, but Sydney too, because Sydney wrote a book, and I'm sure, you know, got money from interviews or whatever. You know, it's the kind of sick thing where victims of this kind of thing profit off it, because now they're world famous and making money off stab. I'm sure Sydney gets paid for a stab movie to use her likeness and name rights, right? So it's like, so I still think it would be so interesting if the killer is a family member of a victim. We've seen a couple times family members of killers getting revenge. What if it's a victim that it's like, this will keep happening unless you die. Innocent kids, innocent people will keep dying because you keep profiting off of this stuff. Like, so that's a really heavy motive that I think could be explored, you know? I'm just happy we're not in Woodsboro. I feel like we've explored Woodsboro either in real life or in Scream 3 on set, like a lot, you know what I mean? So we're now in the pictures that from set show Pine Grove, wherever that is. I assume West Coast, because I think Sydney lives in like Seattle or somewhere not far from Woodsboro, but far enough, right? So Pine Grove, I think it's cool to establish a new town. I'm just keeping an open mind. I hope it's not too redundant, but you know, we of course need some Easter eggs to carry over. I love Maureen Prescott. I think there's such interesting, dark stuff there. So if we can add her back in somehow where it makes sense, I think that could be really weird. I don't know. I don't know if it could be another family member as a killer or another whatever, but something with Maureen, I think could be really interesting. And I was thinking you could even potentially finally bring Sam and Tara's mom back without them in the movie.
They mentioned her.
It would be weird.
I think that was going to be a big thing if they brought those 2 girls back. They were going to use Sam and Tara's mother, because they kept they brought her up a lot actually in 5 and 6, and like she's like the unseen like major character in 5 and 6 because of obviously her whole history with Billy. So that's the biggest bummer of like Sam and Tara not coming back, is like, well, we need to finally meet Mrs. Carpenter. Because in the Scream 5 script that is online, there's a couple scenes with Mrs. Carpenter, which is shocking that they cut it. She had a very small role. She's like drunk and yelling at Sam and driving off. Like it actually kind of makes sense to not
really like keep her in there, but like they wanted to show her much sooner. So I was thinking, like, could we like have her somehow like on Gail's show or knocking on Sydney's door? I don't know. Maybe it's too silly, but we got to eventually meet Mrs. Carpenter because 5 and 6 mirrored 1 and 2. So I think we all thought 7 was going to mirror 3, and 3 has so much to do with Mom's backstory. So 7, we would finally meet Mrs. Carpenter, and like, so I'm ranting, I know, but yeah, I'm like Jackson. I kind of am open to whatever.
You always pitch good ideas by the end
of
the
episode.
It's usually like sequels or reboots or like how this could work.
I know. I'm like, okay, I'm part of the problem, and I want to just keep seeing sequels, right? Yeah. No original ideas, but yeah, I just hope it's good. Joel McHale worries me. I really was hoping for Patrick Dempsey. And don't get me wrong, I actually love Joel McHale. I think he's great. I think he's funny, good looking. Like he's great, but I'm just like, I don't want this to be Scream 3 again. And he feels Scream 3 to me. You know what I mean? With his whole kind of bouncy, you know? Yeah. So, okay. We'll see. But yeah, the cast is interesting. Mark Consuelos, like we said, the killers, some of the killers are back. Lots of teens. And then
McKenna Grace and like
the Meeks Martin kid. Oh yeah, McKenna Grace. I mean, she's a Scream queen. So I'm actually most excited.
So
to
like
see
what I'm
her.
excited about them bringing back, because I don't know what my expectations are for it. I'm hoping for the best. I do think the casting news is interesting, but what I do like is to kind of bring down the franchise hostility between people who like this one and that one. And I do like that they brought people back from 5 and 6 to kind of say like it's still like, because there was a worry that like Kevin Williamson would just say like, hey, 5 and 6 didn't exist because like he, you know, that would have been easier just to continue Sydney's story. So by bringing back Chad and Mindy, it does like, hey, no, those movies were very much like in the timeline. So like I do appreciate that. I think that is important because you don't like feel silly wasting your time watching sequels and then they just go like, yeah, that didn't matter. I'm like, all right, well, I mean, I went through 2 of them. So,
right. That's true. I know. I'm glad it connects. Because without them, we really, because Gail and Sydney don't count because they've been there from the beginning. Without Chad and Mindy, we really are not connected to 5 and 6 most likely. But I am just, how the hell are they going to get to Pine Grove? Like, what are they doing in Sydney's town? Like, I really don't know. My only thought is one of them now like works for Gail and is maybe her new camera person, which could be really fun, but okay, then why the sibling?
Well, Mindy's a movie person, right? So she could work for Gail.
Yeah,
like she wants to get. I don't know how Chad will be there, but
Chad,
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm like, is Chad like babysitting the kids? Like, I really don't know. I have no idea how they get involved. And that's why I think the theory of one or both of them being the opening kill makes a lot of sense because it's like, how else are we connected?
That would just piss off people who are angry about like
I know
Scream 5, Scream 6 thing. Like if they kill them both off right away, they'll be like, "See, we told y'all." Like they'd be like everybody's be upset about it. I mean, it is the only thing that makes sense to me is that they died in the opening.
Okay, I just got it.
So, because they should have died in 6 if we were really like they got knifed up a lot.
oh yeah. At least Chad should have gone in 6. But okay, I think I got it. I think what makes the most sense, and hopefully I'm totally wrong, but what makes the most sense is one of the Meeks Martin twins has to die in the beginning, to then get everyone aware, and it would bring the other sibling in to be, whether they work with Gail or not, to be like, my sibling is dead. Like I'm going to work with you on trying to find out who did this. You know, like it's the only way. It's gotta. That's why I don't know. I kind of think, although the announcements are all fun, like don't announce everyone. Like maybe save those
days, right?
Right?
There was some sort of restraint in casting announcements that it makes me so bitter.
I know. It's like I understand that the marketing has begun. This is all, you know, but like, what if
year too? A whole year from now?
I know,
like February 27th of next year.
Oh wow!
Like it's like crazy how much like. And like I think that they wrap shooting pretty like it'll be pretty.
I think
quick.
next month. I think they're shooting until from January to March. I saw because I've been again, guys. I'm crazy. I follow on Facebook the Extras casting company, and my friend and I totally emailed them saying like, "Hi, we're available." Even though I don't live in Atlanta, but it's just a plane ride away. I'll make it work. Oh my god, I would die. I'll be in the. I'll walk on the sidewalk. I'll whatever. I would gladly right.
100%.
So, but it's funny. Like I don't want to say follow them unless you want something spoiled. I mean, it's not spoilers, but like just knowing like, oh, okay, like they're looking for like young kids. There's a lot of young kids stuff going on. And like, okay, they're looking for like parents of victims. Like it seems like this one, which I like, is just based on my very limited, obviously, knowledge of it. It seems like it's really exploring like the neighborhood and like the town and how, because some of these movies it's like, well, who are your parents? Like I don't know anything about the town. They just die and it's like, all right, bye. It seems like they're looking for like kids and parents and passerbys and couples and like we're really like fleshing out a whole world, which I like. I think that's good. So
I agree.
You never know.
Well, we're all optimistic, it seems like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cautiously optimistic.
1 year left to wait.
1 year
Oh my God, so long. Ugh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love doing these with you guys, especially Mark. Like when it comes to the Scream
Definitely.
stuff.
I feel bad. I'm like, I need to shut up. I'm like, okay, we'll probably be done. Well, it'll be like an hour and a half. And meanwhile, it's like
Mark, people love this about you when you're on the show. Like they actually,
you guys could probably chop this up into a 2-parter. It's so long. Oh my God.
You were ranked.
We've done longer.
We've done longer before, yeah.
Good
You're
for
ranked
you.
as like probably our favorite guest amongst the people that listen.
Oh my
to it.
gosh!
So
well, like I said, it's an honor. Thank you. That is so nice.
You bring a lot of insight, and I think the next horror movie anniversary, or like I think in March is Final Destination.
Final Destination. I'm gonna.
Oh yeah,
you guys are probably talking about that, right? I'm probably going to talk about it on mine. Yeah. So we got to think of. There's definitely more coming. I mean, if you do What Lies Beneath, oh, I love that movie. I don't think I'm going to fit it in. I know that's
my mom loves that movie.
It's kind of like a mom horror movie, and you know what? Love it. Me too. I love mom.
It's
horror.
very much like drink your Pinot Noir and like sit in the dark.
Oh my God! And wear like a white robe, right? Like sign me up.
It's a grown up horror movie for sure.
It's but it's so good. So yeah, there's more on the way for sure. But yeah, like you started with, Gaius, this sort of ended. This was starting to end that kind of the craze that Scream started. Horror started changing because then pretty soon we would get more into like monsters and then the Asian horror and it started shifting soon after.
Coming up, huh?
Yes, and not a horror movie, but it is also really interesting to just keep in mind. We have Scream 3 in the beginning of 2000, which we know is very comical. And then just a few months later, in summer 2000, same thing, Weinstein's Scary Movie came out. So it is kind of interesting how this was leading to that, So, yeah. And I love that one too.
Yeah, and I know Wes Craven he felt some kind of way about them making fun of. He got over it eventually, but he didn't love it. But like,
and same with David Arquette, right?
Yeah, and I think the Wayans brothers were like, "Hey, we're making fun of it because it's good." Doofy. But like the Wayans brothers were like, "Hey, we're making fun of it because it's so good." Like you make fun of these things that become classics. So, a dig against your work, right? And I think Wes Craven took it as a dig against the work.
Well, yeah.
It wasn't meant to be that way.
Imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right?
Exactly. Amen. Yeah. No, and it works so well. That first one, at least. I mean, I know as the movies went on, but Scary Movie 1, oh my God, I remember it as clearly as, the original Scream. So that's a good spoof when you can actually really compare
side by side them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jackson, send the song.
Are we at that time? Oh, actually, I think just quickly before we should rate the movie.
Right. We already forgot.
Yeah. And we'll just do that quick, and then I'll sign us off. But Mark, as our esteemed guest of honor in today's episode, by all means, lead us off here with your rating.
Oh man, I think I always rate things out of 10 on your show. I think. How do you guys rate? Yeah,
we usually do Letterboxd, but you can do whatever you want. Like,
okay.
5 stars.
I don't know. I think of it like IMDb ratings, and I'm pretty sure I gave this one on IMDb. I think I gave it a 7. I don't know. I'm a sucker. Maybe an 8. I mean, it's not a 10. No, like 1 is a 10 for me. 2 is a 10. Like 2 great movies. So somewhere between a 7 and an 8, because like I said, ultimately, like what we've been saying, this movie has really great ideas and moments and ahead of its time in some things. And, the cleverness with all the meta stuff is really good. So, it's not a bad movie. It's just, would have been nice if some things were different. So I'll say 7.5, but still that feels kind of harsh. So, all right, I'm just going to say an 8.
He's like, can't do it.
No, the hairstyles are definitely like out of a 10. Like, that's kind. I would go, no higher than 3 because we got Gale's bangs, we got Parker Posey's whatever that is. I mean, that hair is the streaks and then with Nev's wig, and I mean, Dewey looks good with longer hair, but I don't know. And like everyone's hair is the hair is herring in Scream 3. That's all I'll say. Because Patrick Dempsey with like his mushroom cut.
That $40 million budget did not go to hair.
No,
nothing in
there.
Not.
No.
Do you want me to go, Jackson, or you?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna give it a really. If I'm doing Letterboxd, like a weak 3, like almost like a 2.9. Like it's like I didn't want to give it like 2.5 because I felt 2.5 was too low.
Right. I've been juggling that myself, so I'll say the suspense, and I agree with you guys.
Yeah, I was going back and forth. I was like 2.5, 3. So I'll just say like a weak ass 3.
Yeah, because I guess Letterboxd. I would give it like a little bit higher than you probably guess. Like if I'm doing Letterboxd, I feel like maybe 3.5 feels safe. 4 is too kind.
But I will say, just to not even give any more thoughts on the movie, even though I said a weak ass 3, it is better than most horror franchise sequels.
At that stage.
It's certainly not the worst thing you've ever seen. And I honestly think as a franchise as a whole, as a horror franchise, the Scream franchise is probably the most consistent in terms of quality as far as like being like decent films. So like, but it's just a weak 3. There's just stuff in it that doesn't work for me, and like but I still like if I ever have a marathon, I'm not gonna skip it. Like it's still a part of the
that's a good benchmark.
It's still a part of the rotation. But it's just man, when you come off a really good sequel like we talked about with like X2, like it's like that was so good, and then that third one came out, and like and like Scream 2, actually there's a part of me that likes Scream 2 even more than 1. So, I mean 2 is so solid. When 3 came out, I was like, oh, that was like a big drop off. So
but it's a good reminder, how many movies are there where part 3 is not as good as the others, right? It's
you think they were going meta with that? Maybe this is all
that's why they don't really have a lot of jokes about how like usually the third movie in the trilogy is like the bad one. Like, and I thought,
know
they don't.
They don't talk a ton about and that you're right. I never really thought of it. Yeah, they don't talk enough about movies. Like you said, there's the 7 joke. There's a couple little things, but part 3, you'd think they would have talked about that more. You have Randy's rules, but there's not enough banter. I miss the movie banter. So I do hope in 7 we get some real movie banter, because even in 6 we didn't. I mean, and I like 6 a lot actually. I thought it was pretty thrilling, but like there's not a lot of like movie chat. There's the rules, but I'm talking like. Like when they're just randomly saying like, oh, The Exorcist was on the other night. You know what I mean? Like I want to hear that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you're a weak ass 3.
I'm a weak 3. I'm right there with you guys. No suspense there, and that's for me. That's good. That's a passing grade. That to me means I like the movie. I have my issues with it. I would watch it in a marathon too. I love that as a benchmark. Yes, that's great. I'm gonna start using that for when we talk about series. But all right. With grading out of the way, glad we got to that. Mark, thank you very much for joining us on episode 226 of Back to the Blockbuster. Your enthusiasm, I know. We're gonna be at 250.
You guys are cranking them out. It's impressive. I'm like,
no, dude, when I think about our schedules and like how like he's so far ahead, like I almost said in time. I guess you are so far ahead, hours ahead, and like we're both really busy. I don't know how we do it, but we make it work. And I'm
make the time. I love it. And you've been a part of the show with us for many times now. We love having you back, and hopefully we see you in the next couple months with some of the other anniversaries that we have coming up. Hopefully we can make like a Final Destination work or something like that, and I'd love to get on your show too.
Let's partner up on something for sure. We'll send each other lists and ideas, because it's
there you go. And we'll leave a link to your show, guys, but for those listening, you guys can find Mark at Release Date Rewind Podcasts. Check him out there. He's fantastic, and I hope to make my debut there. This is the year. Hopefully maybe the first half we'll mark something out. We'll be in touch.
Love it.
Like I said, love having you on. It was great talking Scream 3 with both of you, and thanks for, I know this is chaotic to get 3 people sit down and make everything work, so thanks for being agreeable and making the time to join us for a couple hours. It was fantastic, and thank you guys for tuning into another episode of Back to the Blockbuster and listening to us rant about our favorite things. And why not go give Scream 3 a rewatch if you guys are due. Thanks, guys. Gaius, I will see you soon. Mark, always a pleasure, my friend.
Always.
And
thank
we'll
you.
see you on the next one, guys.